There is a silence that only arrives after too much has been spoken, and you have spoken so much even when your lips were still. You have argued with thoughts, bargained with time, pleaded with sleep. And now, after so many inner negotiations, you've finally arrived here. Not in triumph, not in defeat, just here. The rain began hours ago, softly, like a memory returning before it's fully understood. Each drop a small forgiveness, falling not at you, but around you like the earth has made space for your weariness. You stand before a gate. It is open. It was always open. The stones beneath your feet are wet with age, and the wood of the old gate has not resisted the years it has absorbed them. Just like you. You too have absorbed so much. Some pain, some love, some questions that never needed answering. And now the air smells of incense, the kind only temples carry, not because of its ingredients, but because of its intention. You step through. No one asks you your name. No one asks you to be anything but what you already are, breathing. A monk appears, robed in rust-colored cloth, barefoot, still. He does not bow. He does not smile. He simply lifts one hand, fingers soft, palm tilted gently upward, as if inviting the rain into your lungs. You breathe, and for the first time all day, you notice that your breath is not the same as your thoughts. It does not accuse, it does not race, it does not remember. It simply enters and leaves, like a guest that never demands anything from the house it visits. The monk turns, his silence louder than any welcome. And you follow him not with your feet, but with your attention. This is how healing begins, not with effort, but with a shift. The monastery doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in rhythm. The drip of rain, the creak of wood, the hush of robes against stone. It speaks in presence, and presence never hurries. You are led to a room with no door. Only a curtain of linen that sways in the breath of the wind. Inside, a mat, a candle, and space. More space than you expected. And yet none of it asks to be filled. You sit. Or maybe you sink. It is hard to tell now. The monk disappears like a tide pulling back. No goodbye, only stillness. A bowl sits before you empty, but not lacking. A single drop of rain rolls down its curve. That drop could be a tear. But whose? The candle flickers without shame. It has always danced like this, not steady, but faithful. And somewhere, a bell rings once. Not for you, not for anyone, just because it is time. You inhale as if the world is not broken. You exhale as if you are not either. Let that be enough for now. Let that be the story before the story. Let that be the breath before the beginning. And now, you rest inside it. Outside, the rain continues. Not with urgency, but with devotion. Each drop is a vow. I will return, and return, and return. The monastery is not made of walls, it is made of pauses. It is made of the space between questions. The space that no longer needs to be filled with explanations. Tonight, you are not a student, you are not a seeker, you are not even someone who must understand. You are simply someone who is allowed to be held by stillness. The candle beside you sways again, not because it's unstable, but because the air is breathing too. There is a scroll on the wall. You can't read the words, you don't need to. The ink has already faded, and what remains is more honest than language. You close your eyes, but something inside opens. A field, a sky, a place with no name, but endless names all at once. The breath enters again, and you do not follow it. You receive it. There is no prize here, no revelation waiting at the end of the path. Only the path itself worn, wet, sacred, like your own quiet heart. You hear the sound of sandals passing by outside your room, a monk sweeping water from stone, not because it will dry faster, but because the sweeping is the prayer. And so, without being told, you begin to sweep too, not with hands, but with your awareness. You sweep the corners of your mind where dust has gathered for years. You sweep gently, without shame. You sweep the memories that ache and the futures that cling. And in doing so, you find something unexpected. Your breath still here. And in that breath a truth appears, not as words, but as presence. You do not need to fix yourself to be held by peace. You do not need to be enlightened to deserve stillness. You do not need to be free to sleep like you already are. You only need to lie down inside this moment. The candle lowers its flame. The rain softens like a lullaby learning to whisper. The bowl remains empty, but somehow you are full. Inhale, as if forgiveness was always waiting. Exhale, as if you've finally given yourself permission to stop. Let the breath become the gate. Let the gate open without effort. Let the monk's silence wrap around you like cloth warmed by firelight. There is no arrival, only return. And now, you rest. You wake before dawn. The rain from last night has stopped, but it still clings to the edge of everything. The window carries a fog not from weather, but from the slow exhale of time. You rise, slowly, not because you must, but because something inside you asks to be met. You step outside your room. The air is cool, but not cold. A breeze brushes past you, gentle as breath on a sleeping child's cheek. In the center of the monastery courtyard is a basin, a wide, shallow bowl, carved from stone, filled with clear water. So still, it mirrors the sky, and in it an arrow, not planted, but resting. Wood, feather, iron, but the sharpness is gone. Time, wind, and water have worn it smooth. The monk appears again, the same one from before, or maybe a different one. Does it matter? They all carry the same silence. He kneels by the bowl, does not speak, does not explain, only places his hand in the water and lifts it out wet with peace. He leaves again, and you are left with the arrow, not to study it, not to analyze, just to watch what time and surrender do to sharp things. You sit beside the bowl, the earth beneath you still damp, but not unkind. There is a story that lives in this moment, a story the Buddha once told. A man is struck by an arrow. It pierces his side sharp, immediate, real. This is the first arrow, the pain that life delivers, the wound that comes from being human. But then the man grows angry. Why me? Who sent this? What did I do wrong? He blames, he resists, he spins in fear, in memory, in thought. And in doing so, he shoots himself again. A second arrow made not of wood, but of mind. The first arrow is pain, the second is suffering. You look down again at the arrow in the water. Its edges are soft now, blunted by surrender. How many arrows have you fired at yourself? Not the ones life gave you, but the ones you kept driving deeper. With every, if only, every, why wasn't I enough? Every, I should have known. How many mornings have you woken with a scar you redrew in your mind before the sun could even rise? And how many nights have you tried to fall asleep with a wound still open because you wouldn't let it rest? You are not to blame for the first arrow, but you have become skilled in forging the second. Not out of cruelty, but out of habit, out of fear, out of a wish to control the uncontrollable. And now that you know, doesn't the water look softer than thought? Let it be so. Let the story live in you, not as guilt, but as release. The arrow does not ask for forgiveness. It only asks to be laid down. You dip your fingers into the bowl. The water is cold, not sharply, but like a mountain remembering snow. Your touch sends ripples across the arrow's reflection, and for a moment, you see yourself there, too distorted, but real. Not broken, only blurred. You think about a moment from long ago, one that still visits your dreams when you're too tired to resist. The words that were said, the look that was given, the leaving that came too soon, and you realize you've been carrying that arrow not in your side, but in your breath. Each inhale tight with memory, each exhale trembling with self-blame. But what if you are not wrong? What if nothing was ever yours to prevent? What if you only needed to feel the first pain and not keep piercing yourself with the echo? The monk returns, carrying a small cloth and a bowl of tea. He says nothing, only places the tea before you and lays the cloth over the arrow. It vanishes beneath the fabric, but you know it is still there. And yet it feels different now, less like a threat, more like a memory you no longer need to repeat. He pours the tea. Steam rises, time slows. You lift the bowl. The heat wraps around your fingers like a silence that knows your name. You sip, and it is not the taste that changes you, it is the stillness, the act of receiving without defending. The tea is not medicine, but you are still healed. You sit for a while, maybe a long while. No one tells you when to leave. No one asks you to speak. Somewhere a bird calls once and does not call again. The arrow beneath the cloth no longer concerns you. It may remain, it may dissolve, but the part of you that kept clinging, that part, is quiet now. You think again of the second arrow, how it took the shape of your inner voice, how it disguised itself as truth, when really it was just repetition. Old pain retold so many times it forgot where it began. You breathe in again, not as someone wounded, but as someone awake. And with the next breath, you begin to notice what's not here anymore. No one is judging you. No one is asking you to explain. No one is waiting for you to prove your worth. And maybe, most of all, you're no longer waiting for the wound to mean something. Not all pain is a prophecy. Some of it is just pain, and some of it was never yours to keep. You rise, gently, without rush. The bowl is still full, the arrow still hidden, the tea still warm. But you are lighter, not because the pain has vanished, but because you stopped aiming it back at yourself. The monk meets your eyes. For the first time he speaks. Just one sentence, soft as dusk. You do not have to suffer in order to heal. Then he bows and turns and leaves. And something in you bows too, not to him, but to yourself, to the self that endured the first arrow, and the second, and now chooses to stop. There is no ending, only exhale. The sky lightens, the birds do not sing yet, but the silence has changed color. And in this color you lie back down, not to escape, but to return, to the breath before the thought, to the moment before the mind, to the space where arrows dissolve in water that remembers only stillness. And now you rest. There is a quiet that follows sorrow, not the silence of peace, but the hush of something broken that still dares to hold its shape. You feel it this morning, not on your skin, but somewhere deeper, beneath the surface where no one looks. The monk has not come, but the tea has, left at your door as if placed there by the wind, still warm, still steaming, still offered despite everything you are carrying. You lift the bowl, your fingers hesitate. There on its side a crack, delicate as a scar, but not hidden, outlined in gold, glinting softly in the morning haze. You pause, not because it frightens you, but because it sees you. You've cracked too, haven't you? Not all at once, not with noise, but in quiet ways, invisible ways, the kind of ways that only appear when you're alone in your room, touching places the world has long forgotten. You hold the bowl with both hands now. It is still warm, still fragrant, still whole enough to carry something sacred. There is a practice in a far place that feels close tonight, where broken bowls are not thrown away. They are mended with veins of molten gold, not to hide the cracks, but to honor them. This practice has a name, but you don't need to remember it. What matters is that the bowl is not ruined. It is made holy by the breaking. You breathe in the steam, let it find the spaces within you that have not been visited in a long while. The bowl does not apologize for its crack. It does not hide behind perfection. It does not pretend to have never been dropped. And yet here it is, still offering warmth, still holding presence, still sacred. Isn't that you too? You who have walked away from so much, even when your legs shook. You who have been left, not just by people, but by moments that once held everything. You who carry 100 invisible fractures that the world keeps mistaking for flaws. Have you ever looked at yourself the way the gold looks at this bowl? With reverence, with tenderness, with the quiet knowing that only something broken can shine this way. You sip, slowly, as if tasting your own survival. The tea does not leak, the bowl does not falter. And suddenly, you wonder, was the bowl ever ruined? Or was it waiting to be seen this way? You remember the first time you cracked. Maybe it was the day someone left, or the night you realized they never really saw you. Maybe it wasn't a moment at all, but a slow erosion of being needed for who you weren't. And instead of being mended, you learned to hide the cracks. To smile where the fracture hurt, to offer warmth even when your own cup was cold. But now there's no one to impress. Only this bowl, this silence, this monk's unseen blessing, and a question that arrives like a bell rung only once. What if the crack was never the shame but the beginning of your real shape? You sit with that, not to solve it, but to let it echo. The gold catches the light again, soft, uneven, beautiful, in a way that makes you ache. You sip again, and the warmth travels through you like an answer you don't need words for. Not everything needs to be healed. Some things only need to be honored. Some wounds were never meant to vanish, only to be seen with kinder eyes. The bowl says nothing, and yet it's saying everything you were never told, that you are still enough, that nothing disqualifies you from love, that you do not need to be smooth to carry something sacred. You rest the bowl in your lap, and you notice the steam still rises, the warmth still lingers, the crack is still there. But now, you are not ashamed of it. You are watching it glow. You are starting to glow, too. You are beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, you were never broken, just opened, just made to hold something holy. Let the breath carry that. Let the warmth stay in your hands a little longer. The bowl is still warm. So are you. And you haven't spilled a drop. You do not rise yet. You simply sit, as if stillness has become a language you forgot you knew. No one rushes you here. The silence does not expect performance. It only invites presence. The crack in the bowl still glints in your lap. The tea cools slowly, but it is no less precious. You watch the way the steam fades, not all at once, but in gentle trails, like a soul returning to the sky. How many times have you hidden your pain because it didn't look beautiful enough? How many times have you mistaken strength for silence about your wounds? But here, in this monastery of unspoken truths, nothing is denied its place. The moss grows in the cracks of the stone. The wood creaks where the grain split. The tea bowl holds warmth exactly where it was once broken, and no one is trying to make it new again. A breeze moves through the doorway. It carries no message, but it stirs something inside you, the memory of a younger version of yourself, weeping quietly after someone said you were too sensitive, as if softness was something to outgrow, as if the crack was something you caused, rather than something you survived. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you see that child still holding the same bowl, still hoping someone would see past the crack. So you do. You see them now. You see yourself, not with pity, but with a warmth that flows deeper than forgiveness. It's not about erasing the past. It's about letting the gold run through it, letting each fracture be touched by something holy. You touch the rim of the bowl with your thumb. There is a chip there, small, almost invisible, but your skin finds it anyway, and instead of shame, you feel gratitude for the journey, for the proof, for the way it still holds warmth. You breathe in, not to hold on, but to remember. You breathe out, not to push away, but to make room. The monk returns. This time, he carries no tea, only a cloth, soft, linen, folded. He kneels beside you. He does not take the bowl. He only places the cloth beside it and waits. No rush, no instruction, just presence. You understand. You lift the bowl and rest it on the cloth. For the first time, you are not afraid to let it go, not because it's unimportant, but because its meaning is now inside you. You have become the gold, not the crack, not the break, not the moment of shattering, but the beauty that holds it all together. You look to the monk. He nods the smallest movement, yet it carries the whole Dharma. Then he stands. And for the first time, so do you. You leave the room, not lighter, not heavier, but truer. The sky has brightened, though the sun still hides. Birds begin again, not in chorus, but in single notes, spaced like prayer beads on an invisible string. The path beneath your feet is uneven. Some stones are loose, some firm, but none of them apologize for their condition. They have carried many. They carry you now, and in your chest a warmth, the kind that no longer seeks explanation, only breath. The crack is no longer the end of the story. It is the seam that holds the story open. You walk a little further, past the garden, past the bell, to the edge of the courtyard, where the world becomes trees again, and there you pause. Because something in you is pausing, because for the first time in a long time, there is no shame trying to outrun your name. You are not fixed, but you are faithful. Faithful to yourself, to the softness, to the bowl that cracked and never stopped offering warmth. A leaf lands at your feet, brown, curled, finished with its greening, and yet you pick it up as if it were gold, because now you see the sacred in everything that has changed. Even you, especially you, no need to prove yourself, no need to be whole in their eyes. You were not made to be untouched. You were made to hold light through the lines they told you to hide. And so you sit again at the edge of the world, with the cracked bowl still in your memory, still in your breath, not as a flaw, not as proof of failure, but as the most honest part of your shape. You close your eyes, and nothing in you flinches. Let the silence come. Let the past rest. You are not the wound. You are the warmth that poured through it anyway. And here, in the hush between moments, you let go not of the story, but of the shame. You touch the invisible gold in your chest, and you let it shine quietly into the dark. No one sees it, but you feel it, and that is enough. The wind shifts, the world sighs, and the light begins again. Some mornings do not call you with urgency. They do not shout through the window or tug at your feet. They simply arrive softly, like dew on a leaf that no one sees, but still exists. This is one of those mornings. No bell, no footsteps, no voice telling you what comes next. You rise, not because you must, but because the light on the wall has changed. Not brighter, just quieter, as if the sun remembered how to whisper. You step outside. The earth beneath you is warm from the night silence. There is no path here, only patches of stone, and then beyond that, wildness, a slope that leads into trees, and trees that part into a clearing you hadn't noticed before. You walk slowly, not seeking anything, just listening. The air smells of something that doesn't belong to you, something older, wiser, patient, and then you see it. A garden, But not the kind with neat rows or trimmed borders, not the kind that's been planned, planted, or pruned. This garden has no fence, no gate, no sign to say it is one, just earth and time and sky, and growing from it wildflowers, dozens, hundreds, maybe, all of them rising from soil that looks dry in places and overgrown in others. Some grow sideways, some lean on each other, some bloom toward nothing in particular, and still they bloom. You kneel in the grass. It's uneven beneath your knees, but soft, and you begin to understand why the monk sent you this way. He didn't say a word, just placed a small wooden token in your palm after morning tea, etched into it one single character. It meant watch, not search, not fix, just watch. And so you do. You watch the yellow petals unfold without needing a reason. You watch the stalks sway with no music but the breeze. You watch the dandelion seeds release themselves into the air without permission. This garden did not ask for care. It did not ask for help. It simply found a way to grow in its own time, without tending, without control, without someone pushing it to bloom. And still here it is, beautiful, messy, sacred. You reach toward a patch of wild clover, and your hand grazes a flower whose name you do not know. It leans into your touch not as a command, but as a trust, and you realize so much in you has been trying to force its healing, trying to bloom on schedule, trying to fix what didn't ask to be fixed, trying to shape your heart into something presentable. But healing is not performance. It is not a plan. It is not something you do right. It is something that unfolds in silence, in slowness, in seasons you don't always understand. You remember how hard you've tried, how many journals you've filled, how many nights you've stayed up thinking, how many ways you've wondered if you're growing fast enough. But this field has never asked that question. The garden does not rush its own unfolding. It does not worry if it is behind. It does not compare its petals to the ones blooming nearby. It simply becomes what it already is. And you are part of this garden now. You sit a little deeper in the grass. You let your hands rest on the ground. You feel the soil beneath your fingertips dry, cracked, uneven. But from this very place, life has emerged. Without pushing, without pressure, only space. That's what the soil offered, and that's all you've ever truly needed. Not another answer, not another method, just room. Room to ache without shame, room to rest without guilt, room to grow without explanation. The wind picks up, just enough to stir the taller stems. They sway, not in fear, but in rhythm. And you, for the first time, in a long time, sway with them. Not forward, not toward anything, just here, just now. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you feel it. That something inside you is still growing, even when you're not trying, even when you're grieving, even when the world says you should be somewhere else by now. There is a flower blooming in the corner of your soul, one you didn't plant, one you stopped watching long ago, and it has not given up. It rises, not because you demanded it, but because it remembers how to meet the light. Let that be enough for now. You open your eyes again. The sun has shifted not higher, but softer. A bird lands nearby. It does not sing, it only watches. As if to say this, too, is part of the garden. This stillness, this waiting, this breath. There is no lesson here, only life. And sometimes that is the deepest teaching of all. You remain still, but nothing in you is stuck. Stillness is not stagnation. It is ripening. It is the space where roots deepen without anyone seeing. The flowers do not explain how they grow. They do not defend their beauty. They simply arrive again and again without applause. And now, something in you is softening to this truth. You were never meant to bloom by force. You remember the times you tried. When grief arrived and you rushed to transform it into wisdom. When loss knocked the wind from you and you reached for meaning before your lungs could even fill. When pain cracked open your chest and you stitched yourself together too quickly just to look whole. But here, in this garden, there is no reward for blooming on time. The daisy does not scold the fern for unfurling slowly. The violet does not envy the lily's color. The grass does not beg to be noticed. Each thing grows when it is ready, not before, not because, only when. You rest your palm on the ground again, and this time you feel it breathing, not as lungs do, but in its own quiet rhythm, a rise, a fall, a sacred patience running through the veins of the earth. And suddenly, you remember, you are made of this, too. Your body, your mind, your heart, they carry the same seed silence as this field. You do not need to be fixed. You need to be let alone in the most loving way. The monk appears at the edge of the garden, barefoot, his robe brushed by weeds that pay him no mind. He does not enter. He does not disturb. He only waits. You rise slowly, not because you are finished, but because the moment has turned its page. You walk toward him, but not to leave the garden, to carry it with you. He places something in your hand. It is not a tool, not a scroll, not a scripture. It is a seed, small, unremarkable, perfect. No words are spoken, none are needed. You both bow to each other and to the silence between you. Then he turns, and so do you. You make your way back through the trees. The sun is rising now, but not proudly. Soft, like someone remembering how to return after being gone a long time. At the edge of the monastery, you pause. You look at the seed in your palm. You do not plant it. Not yet. You do not rush. Not anymore. Because now, you know. Growth does not begin when the seed breaks open. It begins the moment you stop digging it up to check its progress. It begins when you trust the dark to do its work. You walk back to your room. The cup is still on the table. The light has shifted through the window, but something invisible has changed its color. You sit and place the seed beside you. A bird calls once, then stops. A leaf falls and lands in silence. And you are no longer trying to heal. You are letting healing arrive when it wishes. Not as fire, not as thunder, but as wildflowers in forgotten soil. Let them bloom where no one looks. Let them rise from your breath. Let them soften you without ever asking your permission. You do not need to guide them. You do not need to understand them. Just offer them space, like this garden did, like the monk did, like the wind always has, and like you now can. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to open, without trying. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to become. You are already the field, already the soil, already enough. And somewhere deep within, beneath the silence, beneath the waiting, beneath all the places that never healed fast enough, something green has begun to stir. It needs no name. It needs no reason. It only needs you to step back, so it can rise without a gardener and quietly take its place in the light. You hear it before you see it, the soft hush of rain touching the stone outside your room, not loud, not rushing, just present, like someone who arrives and needs no introduction. You sit still, not in meditation, not in effort, just sitting as if your body remembers that sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing. The monk does not come this morning, but the rain does. And it brings no lesson, no story, no reason, only itself. It taps the roof, slips down the wood, trickles into the moss. Every surface receives it the same way. The broken branch, the smooth stone, the torn robe you left on the line. Nothing is asked, nothing is judged, all are touched. Equally, you step outside. The air smells like something ancient: wet earth, damp cedar, a silence made liquid. Across the courtyard, you see the temple bell, tall, still, patient, and sliding down its side a single drop, round, bright, unhurried. It travels the curve of bronze, as if it knows exactly where it belongs, then disappears into the folds of the stone below. You walk closer, not because you need an answer, but because something in you wants to be near what doesn't ask anything of you. The bell has not rung today, and yet it speaks, not in sound, but in stillness. It receives the rain. It does not resist. It does not command. It only allows. You reach out your hand, palm up, open, waiting, and the rain lands. It does not check your past. It does not measure your worth. It does not ask why you feel heavy. It just falls, gently, honestly, freely. And something in you begins to believe maybe you don't need a reason to be treated with kindness. Maybe you don't need to earn what the sky gives without question. You stay like that, hand open, heart loosened, as the bell watches in silence. The rain becomes your breath, soft, constant, forgiving. There is no ceremony here, no robe, no chant, only you, the bell, and the sky that never once asked you to explain yourself. The rain continues, not heavier, just longer, like a memory that no longer wounds but still returns. You sit beside the bell now, not seeking answers, just letting the water find you. It darkens your sleeve, pools on your knees, slides along your jaw, and for the first time you don't flinch. You let it mark you, not as shame, but as proof that you are part of this moment. The bell doesn't ring, and yet you feel something echo inside, not loud, not clear, but real. You've spent years trying to explain yourself, why you were sad, why you didn't bounce back, why you held on too long to something that had already let go. You told stories to justify the tenderness. You hardened yourself to be taken seriously. You hid softness as if it were a crime. But the rain never asks why. It falls on temples and gutters, on monks and broken roof tiles, on the healed and the hurting, without distinction, without pause. And now it falls on you, fully, freely, not because you've earned it, but because you exist. Isn't that enough? You close your eyes, and instead of resisting, you open. Like soil accepting water it forgot it needed. You remember a moment, one you rarely speak of. You cried once, in front of someone who didn't stay. And when they left, you decided, next time I will not be so open. But the rain slips through that vow now. It tells you you were never wrong for feeling deeply. You were never weak for needing comfort. You were just waiting for the sky to say, I see you too. The monk appears in the distance. He stands beneath a wide umbrella of silence, robes soaked, expression unchanged. He does not beckon. He only stands as witness. You rise. You do not dry yourself. You do not explain. You walk through the rain as if it were blessing, and in a way it is. You pass the bell, still quiet. You bow, not because it spoke, but because it listened. You return to your room. Lay down your soaked shawl. Leave the window open just a little. Let the sound stay. Let the rain speak in the voice you once denied. Not loud, not urgent, but enough. You lie down without guilt, without defense, without needing the story to make sense. Tonight, the rain touches everything equally, and in that quiet mercy, you begin to believe that you belong. Not later, not when healed, not when perfect, but now, as you are, a temple the sky never stopped blessing, and outside the bell remains still. But inside you, something sacred has already rung. The wind arrived during the night. Not loud, not violent, just steady, like someone determined to be known without raising their voice. It moved through the bamboo, pressed against the shutters, threaded through the cracks in your door, and curled around your breath while you slept. Now morning comes, but the wind remains. It does not leave just because light has returned. Some things stay longer than expected. Some discomforts linger without apology. You rise slowly. The room is dim, though the sun is awake. There's a candle on your table, still burning. You hadn't meant to leave it lit, but somehow it kept watch while you rested. Its flame is not steady. It sways, it trembles, it leans toward every whisper the wind sends through the walls. But it does not go out, and somehow that matters more than anything else this morning. You sit beside it, not to fix it, not to shield it, just to witness its quiet resilience. There is something sacred about a flame that refuses to die just because it moves. Your fingers rest on the floor. The boards are cool. The wind brushes past your ear, gentle but insistent. The candle flickers harder, and yet it glows. Not perfectly, not without effort, but truly. You think of yourself, of how many mornings you've woken, already tired, already uncertain, already bracing for the next gust. Of how many nights your own light has flickered, not because you failed, but because the wind wouldn't let you be still. But you're still here. A little unsteady, a little quieter than before. But here, you remember a moment not long ago when you thought the trembling meant you were losing yourself. That shaking hands, a racing heart, a voice cracking under the weight of truth were signs of collapse. But now, watching this flame dance in the draft, you wonder, what if trembling is not weakness? What if it's the shape courage takes when it stops pretending to be unshakable? The monk enters without a sound. He stands in the doorway, robes stirring with the wind, eyes on the flame. He watches it flicker, then watches you. And then he places a second candle beside the first. He does not light it. He simply leaves it there, unlit, still, then disappears again. You understand. You reach for the new candle, hold it to the flame that hasn't gone out, and together they glow. One flickering, one calm, but both burning. You sit back, let your shoulders drop, let your breath loosen. The wind has not left. It still moves through the room, but now you are no longer fighting it. You are glowing with it. That's the shift, not the absence of shaking, but the refusal to mistake movement for failure. Your hands rest near the candles now. You feel the heat, not harsh, not overwhelming, just real, just enough. And in that warmth, you begin to remember how many times you thought your light had died. But it hadn't. It had only leaned, only bent, only danced. And yet, still there, still yours, still fire. Let that truth settle in your chest now. Let it live beside the ache. You don't have to hold perfectly still to be whole. You don't have to be fearless to be faithful. Even the candle bows sometimes, but it does not disappear. Time moves gently now, not because the wind has stopped, but because you've stopped resisting it. The two candles remain lit, side by side, both glowing in their own way, one flickering, the other still. And suddenly, you see yourself in both. The steadiness you long for, the movement you've judged, the version of you that knows how to be calm, and the version that trembles anyway, but shows up just the same. You are not one or the other. You are both. There were days you thought you had to choose. Be the strong one. Be the composed one. Be the one who doesn't flinch. But what if strength was never the absence of shaking? What if it was the willingness to burn honestly even when the wind is watching? You close your eyes. The breeze brushes your cheek. A curl of hair lifts, then settles again. Nothing is trying to hurt you. It's just life, moving. And for once, You are not bracing against it. You are breathing with it. You are learning that surrender doesn't mean the flame dies. It means it moves without fear of being seen. The monk returns. He carries no candle this time, only a small clay dish filled with wax, melted and fragrant. He places it near you, and without a word, he dips his fingers in, lets the wax coat his skin, then lifts his hand toward the flame. You watch, almost afraid it will burn him, but it doesn't. The wax seals into his palm, warm, shining, gentle. He bows to the candles, bows to you, and leaves. You look at the wax. You dip your own fingers in, slowly, carefully. You let it cover the cracks on the backs of your hands, the ones you used to hide. And it dries, like quiet protection, not armor, but blessing. You return your gaze to the candle. It leans again, a sudden gust, a flicker that looks almost like failure, but no, still there, still alive, still light. And it occurs to you, you've confused flickering with breaking, you've confused uncertainty with weakness, you've confused your most human moments with flaws to be corrected. But what if those were the holiest moments of all? The times you cried but showed up anyway, the times you trembled but told the truth, the times your voice shook but still spoke. What if those moments were not cracks but doorways? You sit in silence, watching the flame bow and rise, and something in you does the same. You remember a night when you nearly gave up. You sat on the floor of a room no one knew you were in, and your breath felt like it didn't belong to you. But still, some small ember inside kept breathing, kept waiting, kept glowing, even if no one saw it, especially then. And that ember, however faint, brought you here, to this wind, to this candle, to this quiet moment where you finally understand. Your trembling has always been a sign of staying, not giving up. Staying, with the pain, with the doubt, with the part of you that didn't believe it could. But it did. And you did. And here you are. You lean forward, cupping your hands gently around the flame, not to smother it, not to still it, just to say, I see you. The wind is still there. It may never leave. But now, you don't fear its arrival, because now you know. The flame doesn't mind. It only dances. And you can dance too, even with trembling knees, even with a heart that remembers how to ache. You can dance in the wind and still be fire. You rise slowly. The candles glow behind you. You leave them lit. Let them keep watch. Let them remind the room that movement is not weakness, that trembling is not defeat. That light, true light, bows often but never vanishes. You return to your bed, not because you are tired, but because something in you is ready to rest without fixing everything first. The wind brushes the curtain. It lifts slightly, then falls. The flame flickers behind your closed eyes. And in your chest, a matching glow, small, soft, unbroken. You do not need to hold your breath. You do not need to be unshaken. You only need to remain lit, in your own way, in your own rhythm, in your own quiet light. And tonight you are. The wind can stay. You will still burn. And in that flicker, you begin to believe that you have never failed at being fire. Some nights do not end. They simply shift their weight from shadow to silence. You rise after midnight, not startled, not searching, just awake in that sacred way where thought becomes air and the soul remembers its quiet shape. The monastery is still. Even the wind has gone quiet, as if it, too, is listening for something older than sound. You step outside, barefoot. The stones are cold, but not unfriendly. The sky is pale with moonlight, not silver, but something softer. The color of sleep just before it lets go. You follow a path you don't remember choosing. Your body knows it, even if your mind does not. It leads you to a wall, stone, tall, cloaked in moss, and in the middle of that wall a gate. It stands wide open, not broken, not forced, just open, as if it has always been this way. You approach it slowly, not in fear, but in reverence. There is something about thresholds, places where one thing becomes another, that asks us to move like breath instead of footsteps. You stand at the edge, and you wait. As if permission must be granted, as if someone must invite you through, but no one comes. There is no lock, no chain, no voice saying you must not pass. Only your own hesitation, and there in that pause you see it. The barrier was never real, only imagined. You breathe, not because the gate opens, but because you do. You take one step, then another, and now you are through. And nothing happens, not in the dramatic way you once expected. No light splits the sky, no voice proclaims you free, just a hush, a stillness, a deep remembering. You sit beside the gate, on the other side now, and you look back. The moonlight makes it clear there was never a door, only space, and a story you once believed. That peace was something outside you, far away, guarded, something you had to earn, or prove worthy of, or suffer enough to deserve. But the truth is quieter. The truth just stands there, open, unmoving. It always was. And now, your breath feels different. Not because it changed, but because it no longer has to fight for entry. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you see all the gates you built in your own mind. Gates of guilt, of doubt, of memory, of not yet enough. You see the signs you hung on them. Do not enter, not ready yet, unworthy. And you remember the weight of waiting, waiting for the voice to stop, for the ache to leave, for the world to open. But peace never required waiting. It only required you to stop walking away from it. You let out a breath that's been locked in your chest for years, and nothing breaks, nothing crumbles, nothing crashes, but something lifts, not outside, but within. The kind of lifting that does not take you upward, but inward, into the place where you were never trapped, only tangled. You lie back in the grass, just beyond the gate. The moon watches quietly, and now you feel it. The gate was never closed, not even once. You lie beneath the stars as if the sky itself were exhaling through you. No barrier, no distance, only stillness touching stillness. For so long, you believed freedom was a destination, somewhere down the path. Beyond the next trial, after the next apology. You kept walking because you thought the gate was far, because you thought you needed a key, because someone once told you you weren't ready. But tonight, beneath this open sky, you know, the only thing between you and peace was the thought that you were not allowed to have it. You had chained yourself with ideas too heavy to carry. You had mistaken effort for entrance. You had mistaken suffering as proof of passage. But this moonlight, it never needed convincing. It never required transformation. It simply arrived. Just as you did, a breeze passes through the open gate. Cool, effortless, free. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't check if it's worthy. It doesn't ask for permission. It simply moves through what was never closed. And now so do you. You think of all the times you told yourself you were not ready. I'll rest when I'm stronger. I'll let go when I've figured it out. I'll return when I'm fixed. But healing is not the fee you pay to enter peace. It's the grace that finds you when you stop resisting the door that's always been open. The gate does not ask who you were, only who you're willing to be right now. And if you listen closely, you'll hear its only request. Come in as you are. You sit up, not to leave, just to see. The path ahead is soft, with moonlight. It does not promise ease. It does not promise answers. Only space, only now, only what has always waited. You rise, and walk slowly through the gate again, not to escape, but to carry the silence back with you. There's a peace that follows you, not outside, not above, but within, because once you know the gate is open, you stop pretending you're trapped. You return to your room. It hasn't changed, but your breath has. You light a single candle. It does not flicker in fear. It simply offers light without expectation. You sit beside it, and everything you thought was in the way, shame, doubt, tiredness, is just gone, not vanished, but seen through. Like mist once the sun rises, you close your eyes. And the gate is still there, not behind you, not ahead of you, but inside. You carry it now, the knowing, the stillness, the opening, and the moon, on the other side of your eyelids, still shines, not because you asked it to, but because it never stopped. Let that be enough. Let that be truth. The gate never closed. It never will. And you are already home. You hear it before you think it. The sound that doesn't ask to be heard but reaches you anyway. A bell, somewhere in the distance, somewhere inside. Its tone is deep, round, and full like a breath that remembered how to return home. You pause, not because you plan to, but because something ancient inside your chest knows to stop when a bell speaks. Its sound travels further than your thoughts, past memory, past emotion, into the soft dark beyond reason, and then just like that it fades. You wait, not for the next sound, but for what remains. The silence after. The echo that isn't sound, but space, not absence, not emptiness, but the presence of something that finally let go. You step into the courtyard, drawn by something that isn't calling but welcoming. The bell tower stands there, unmoved, its ropes coiled, its mouth still, but the air around it is vibrating with the memory of what just passed. You sit beneath it, not to make it ring again, but to feel what the ringing left behind, and what it left is stillness. Not quiet, but stillness, a sacred kind that arrives when something is fully given and then fully released. The bell did not resist the strike. It opened to it, and in opening, it made music. Not because it wanted to, but because it was built to surrender. You think of yourself, of the times you've clung to the sound of your own voice, trying to control the tone of your life, of the times you tried to shape meaning in the middle of the noise, before letting the echo fade. But peace doesn't come from holding, it comes when the bell stops ringing, and you're still there, alive in the silence. You close your eyes, the sound still hums somewhere in your ribs, not as noise, but as memory, a trace of having been touched by something true. And you ask, how many times have I missed the stillness because I chased the sound, because I feared the moment after the moment, because I believed if there was no sound, there was no meaning. But now, beneath this tower, with the air still holding the shape of the bell's last breath, you know, the silence is the purpose. The ring is only the opening. It begins with sound, but it becomes real only in its vanishing. You touch the stone beneath you. It's cool, solid, unconcerned, like it has known every bell strike for centuries and never once tried to capture the echo. You exhale, and your breath joins the stillness, not to break it, but to bow to it. Somewhere nearby, the monk walks the path in circles. You hear the faint rustle of his robes as they brush the grass. He does not look at you, but he walks like someone who has made peace with letting things go. His presence is not loud, not even firm, but each step says, you don't have to be ringing to be meaningful. You stay beneath the bell. You do not ask it to speak again. You do not ask yourself to move. You let the echo become part of you. And you wait for what comes after surrender. Not sound, not silence, but truth. The kind that doesn't shout. the kind that only arrives when everything else has faded. You don't know how long you've been sitting here, but time has loosened its grip. It no longer tugs on you like it used to. There is no urgency, no countdown, no voice reminding you what should happen next. Only this: the space between sounds, the grace between thoughts, the moment after release that asks nothing of you except to stay. You remember a time when silence frightened you, when it felt like failure, like a blank page you didn't know how to fill. You filled it with noise, with proving, with effort, with endless ways to keep the bell ringing long after the rope was dropped. You thought motion meant meaning. You thought stillness was surrender in the worst way. But now, you see stillness is surrender in the holy way, not giving up, but giving in, to presence, to peace, to the breath that no longer performs. You rise slowly. The stone beneath you does not protest. It has held so many seekers, so many questions, so many knees that bent without knowing why. You step to the bell. Its surface is weathered, bronze, smoothed by centuries of wind, rain, and prayer. You place your hand upon it. It does not sing, but your hand remembers the sound it once made, and that is enough. You don't need to ring it. You don't need to relive the past to honor it. Some moments are complete in their fading. You bow your head, not as ritual, but as recognition. The bell gave what it was meant to give, and then it rested, just like you. You begin walking back, but not toward anything. There is no destination when you've already arrived. Each step lands softer, not because the ground has changed, but because you have. You move like someone who has stopped asking for permission to feel peace. You are not chasing silence anymore. You are letting it catch up to you, and when it does, it wraps around your breath like a robe. You enter the temple, dim, warm, still. Candles flicker, but not urgently. They are not trying to prove their light. They are simply glowing because it's their nature to do so. You sit, and the quiet in the room doesn't demand stillness, it offers it. You realize how long you've been trying to earn this, trying to deserve peace, trying to understand your way into calm. But the bell never asked for understanding. It simply rang, and then it stopped. And in its stopping, everything holy became clear. That's what surrender is. Not a gesture, not a drama, just letting go and trusting what's left when the sound fades. You place your hand over your chest. There is no ache there, no grasping, only breath, only space. You close your eyes, and you are not waiting for anything. Not the next teaching, not the next bell, not the next version of yourself. You are already what the echo revealed. Whole, without noise, without tension, without needing to be rung. A single candle wavers slightly, then steadies. You open your eyes, and nothing has changed. And yet everything has. Because now, you are no longer the sound trying to be heard. You are the stillness that holds it. You are the hush after the ring, the space after the effort, the peace after the trying. And that silence, it is not empty. It is sacred. You lie down. The floor beneath you breathes like earth. No one speaks. No one stirs. But the bell, even silent, has already spoken everything you needed to hear. Let it be enough. Let it ring through the marrow of your being without sound. Let the hush remain, not because there's nothing left to say, but because you've finally heard what matters most. The bell is still, the air is full, and you are the echo that never needed to end. There is a stream behind the temple, not far, but hidden. You must stop trying to find it before it lets itself appear. It does not speak loudly. It does not rush. It simply moves, carving the earth slowly, as if time itself is something to be softened. You walk there now, not for clarity, but for something quieter than clarity, something that feels like forgetting. The path narrows, moss covers the stones. A single fern brushes your arm, as if reminding you that you are not here to carry anything, not even your name. You arrive at the stream. It glimmers like a thought that no longer needs to be understood, and beside it, a folded robe, rust red, worn at the hem, tended by years of kneeling and mornings begun before the sun. There is no one nearby, no footprints, no sandals, just robes, folded neatly, as if the body that once wore them simply dissolved into the air. You sit, not because you are tired, but because you too have carried a name for so long that you forgot what silence feels like without it. The water moves beside you. It does not know who you are. It does not care. And somehow that is the most loving thing you've ever felt. You let your name slip away, not spoken, not mourned, just released like breath that has done its work. You remember the day you first believed your name was you. They said it, and you answered. They called it again, and you shaped yourself to match it. A role, a mask, a story. You wore it well, until you wore it always. But the stream doesn't know that name. It only sees the part of you that still shines when no one is watching. You touch the folded robes. They are still warm. And you wonder, what kind of monk forgets his own name? One who no longer needs it. One who remembered what he was before he was anything. The stream says nothing, but it knows. It has seen many names dissolve into its silence, and now it invites yours too. The breeze shifts. You feel it lift your hair, then let it go. Even the wind doesn't hold on to what it touches. You watch the stream curl around a stone. It does not resist. It does not announce itself. It just becomes. You wonder what would it feel like to live like that, to not be the story, not be the shape others assigned, not be the echo of wounds you had to carry just to feel seen. What if your sadness was never your identity? What if your strength was never the point? What if the quiet part of you was the truest all along? The monk who left these robes, he must have known. That identity is just dust on the surface of still water. It floats until you stop stirring. Then it settles, and beneath it the truth waits. Not the truth of facts, but the truth of being. The stream flows beside you, but you're no longer watching it. You're watching the space inside you begin to widen. There is no one to impress, no voice to perform, no mask to hold in place. You are nameless, and it feels like breathing for the very first time. You lie down beside the robes. They do not belong to anyone now. Or maybe they belong to everyone. Because what is left when a name is gone, when the story ends, when even the monk vanishes? Only presence, only sky, only water, only this, whatever this is. You place your hand over your chest. It still beats, but it beats without identity. A rhythm that asks nothing, claims nothing, and yet proves everything. You are not your voice. You are not your timeline. You are not your reflection. You are the space where all of it once lived and now drifts away like leaves on the stream. Let them go. Let the names fall from memory. Let the roles unravel. Let even your favorite versions of yourself dissolve into mist. You are still here, and you are more real without them. The water sings, not in melody, but in movement. It welcomes the one who forgot who they were and became what always was. A breeze carries a final whisper through the trees. It brushes your cheek, and it feels like the monk never left, like he became the space itself. And perhaps you are becoming that too. You sit up, the robes remain folded. But now you do not need to understand them. You only need to bow to the stream, to the silence, to the one within you who no longer needs a name to be free. And as you stand, You feel it. The weight you mistook for self is gone. There is no you to prove, no image to uphold. Only the one who watches the stream and dissolves. And in that dissolving you are finally whole. The wind was soft that morning, the kind that doesn't move the trees, only rests inside them. You were walking alone near the edge of the temple grounds, past the bell, past the gate, toward a grove that was always just a little out of reach. The air smelled of dry bark and something quieter than memory. Not loss, but the space that follows it. A single tree stood at the center, tall, unbothered, cloaked in leaves that had just begun to turn, some still green, some gold, one already falling. You watched it drift, not spiral, not spin, just drift like it knew what it was doing. A soft surrender, without audience, without performance. It didn't wait for the others. It didn't check to see if the wind was right. It simply let go. And that moment, small, almost invisible, broke something open in your chest. You thought of all the times you held on long after the season had ended, to people, to identities, to roles you had already outgrown, to a version of yourself that was no longer alive, but still spoke every time someone said your name. Letting go before the others do, that's the kind of grief no one warns you about. It feels like dying, like betraying the rhythm everyone else is still clinging to. But what if that leaf was the wisest of them all? What if it knew that letting go early was not failure but freedom? You sat beneath the tree, not for answers, only for nearness. The leaf had landed a few feet away, face down in the grass. No ceremony, no applause, only stillness. And somehow it was beautiful. Not because it was bright, but because it was honest. You've known that moment, haven't you? The one where you felt it, that you were done. Not out of exhaustion, but completion. And still you waited, because no one else was ready. Because staying felt safer than being the first to leave. Because letting go alone is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. But strength doesn't always hold on. Sometimes it releases, quietly, without permission, without being witnessed. You close your eyes, and the memory returns that time you knew it was time to walk away from something that once felt like home. But your hands wouldn't open. Not yet. You feared the space that would follow. The silence, the questions, the ache of being the only one not pretending anymore. You feared being the first leaf to let go. But here, beneath this tree, with this wind, you understand something deeper. The leaf did not fall in sorrow, it fell in rhythm, because it trusted what the others hadn't remembered yet. That the branch will not beg, that the ground is not punishment, that the wind knows where to carry you. You open your eyes. The leaf is still there, not moving, but not lost. And you feel something inside you, a grip you've held too long, begin to loosen. Not all the way, just a breath, just enough. The tree doesn't speak, but its silence says this: you are not wrong for letting go before others do. You are not wrong for releasing the grip before anyone else sees the season has changed. Sometimes you are the beginning of the truth no one else is ready to say, and it is lonely. But it is not a mistake. You stay seated beneath the tree. The others haven't begun to fall yet. They cling not out of denial but devotion. They still believe that staying longer means loving more. You remember thinking that too. You stayed in places long after your roots had dried. You whispered, maybe, when your soul had already said no. You told yourself that holding on was noble. But what if letting go was the truest form of faith? Not faith in what comes next, but faith that it's okay not to know. You watch another leaf, still attached, but quivering, not ready, not yet. And you don't rush it. You've learned. Everything releases on its own time, just as you will, again and again. Because surrender is not a one-time act. It is a rhythm, a language. A way of living that honors change more than control. The wind returns, lifting gently through the branches, brushing your face like memory. You close your eyes, and you remember all the moments you let go without witnesses. The tear you didn't explain, the goodbyes you whispered alone, the decisions you made that no one clapped for but changed everything. These too were sacred. The world may never know what you released, but your body remembers, your breath remembers. And tonight, so does the tree. The monk appears in the distance, barefoot, slow, carrying nothing. He walks not toward you, but toward the leaf, the one that fell first. He kneels beside it, not to collect it, not to return it to the branch, only to sit and bear witness. There is no sadness in his face, only reverence, as if the leaf did something holy, as if letting go was not failure but fulfillment. He places his hand to the ground, then bows, then leaves. The leaf remains, but now it is not alone. You lie back beneath the tree. The sky between the branches is wide, blue fading into gold. Another gust moves through. More leaves tremble. One loosens. Two. They fall. Still, silent, ready, but none of them were first. That one choice, that one moment of falling before the others, it takes a different kind of strength. And if that was you, if you were the one who let go first, who walked away while others stayed, who surrendered before the timing made sense to anyone but your soul, then hear this. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not too much or not enough. You are the one who knew the season had shifted before anyone else was willing to feel the wind. And yes, it was lonely, but it was not wrong. You were the wisdom no one was ready for. You were the truth spoken without sound. You were the letting go that made space for what comes next. You place your hand over your chest. It hurts, but the hurt feels clean, like something is finally leaving that was never yours to keep. The branches above you sway, soft, slow, and in your heart, the smallest sound, not words, but knowing. It says, letting go is not what ends you. It is what brings you home. You stay like that for a while, not waiting, just resting. And one more leaf quietly falls. Not with drama, not with fear, only grace, only truth. Only the soft sound of something sacred finally letting go. You do not catch it. You do not stop it. You just watch. And something in you lets go, too. A final breath. A weight released. A peace that doesn't ask for explanation. And beneath the tree, with the wind gently moving your hair, you realize you were never falling apart. You were falling into place. And the letting go, it was never loss. It was love, set free. There is a sound that only happens once in a while, the sound of tea spilling over. It does not shout. It does not splash. It simply slips over the rim of the cup, onto the table, into the wooden tray built to hold what could not be contained. This morning you hear it, not loudly but enough, just enough. The tea has spilled. Not from clumsiness, not from rushing, but because the cup was full, and the hand kept pouring. You pause. You had come for stillness, for quiet, for a sip of something warm. But instead you are met with the image of too much. The monk who poured it says nothing. He watches the tea pool around the base of the cup, then flow into the tray beneath the one carved from cedar, designed not to prevent the spill, but to receive it. He does not rush to wipe it, does not call it a mistake. He lets it happen. And in that stillness, you see yourself. You who have carried so much in silence, who held more than you were made to hold, who kept smiling while the heart sloshed at the brim. You who swallowed feelings too complex for words, too sacred for the wrong ears, too persistent to go away. You who kept pouring, because stopping felt like failure, because you believed there was still more to give. because no one ever told you it was okay to overflow. You watch the tea spread slowly. It does not panic. It does not apologize. It simply follows gravity. It goes where it must. And suddenly your eyes sting, not from pain, but from recognition. There are things in you that need to spill, not in drama, not in violence, but in gentleness, in release, a grief you never named, a love you never spoke aloud, a disappointment you tucked into the far corners of your chest. These too have reached the rim, and now they want to fall. You sit across from the monk. He pushes the cup toward you, still full, still warm, and now perfectly still. You lift it, 2 hands, carefully, as if holding a truth you're finally ready to feel. You sip, and it tastes like permission to not hold everything, to not be the container for everyone else's comfort, to let what spills be part of the ritual, not the failure, not the mess. The ritual. The monk refills his own cup, but only halfway. Then he drinks. His eyes do not seek yours. They rest on the steam rising from his bowl. The silence between you is not empty. It is full of all the things that no longer need to be explained. You place your cup down, some tea still inside, not forced to finish, not asked to endure, just enough. And for the first time in a long time, your chest loosens, not from an answer, but from no longer needing one. You let the tea in the tray remain. You do not wipe it up. You do not clean the scene. You let the overflow stay, visible, soft, real. Because this morning that spill was the most honest part of the ceremony. You sit longer than expected. But the tea is in no hurry, and neither is the pain you've kept tucked beneath your breath. The monk does not speak. He only pours again this time, a little less. His hand moves with care, not to avoid the spill, but to honor the space left for what still wants to be felt. And that space, that empty part of the cup, says more than any words ever could. You think of all the times you overflowed in private, the tears that came after the door was shut, the clenched fists beneath the desk, the long silences that disguised the ache you didn't know how to name. You were full, but you didn't know you were allowed to spill, especially not in front of others, especially not where it could be seen. But now here in this wooden room, with this quiet tea, and this monk who says nothing, you are finally seen in the spill. Not in the composure, not in the balance, but in the release. The tray does not judge the tea. It was made to hold what falls, and in that, there is peace. You sip again. The warmth travels through you like a slow kindness, one that does not demand you get it together, one that simply says, let it soften. You close your eyes, and there it is again, the memory. The moment you broke but didn't show it. The moment someone asked, how are you? And you smiled, because you thought your sadness would be too heavy for the room. You thought you were the only one with too much inside. But here, the tea says otherwise. The monk lifts his tray. There is a puddle beneath the cup. He tilts the tray gently, letting the tea slide into a small wooden groove that leads to a bowl on the corner. No drop is wasted. No spill ignored. Even the overflow has a place. Even the part you thought had no home is carried, held, received. You breathe out, a full, deep exhale, and you don't gather yourself after. You don't rush to appear whole. You just let the breath fall, and something in you falls with it. Not apart, just free. The monk nods. He sees it. Not the performance, the release. He bows to the tray, to the tea, to you, and he leaves. You remain, alone, but not lonely. The cup before you is empty now, but you are not. You are full of space, not pressure, not holding, just space. Enough room for sadness to move, enough room for joy to return, enough room to breathe without tightening. You touch the wooden tray, its grooves, its quiet strength, and you realize you too can be carved to hold what spills, not by force, not by perfection, but by grace, by time, by the quiet knowing that being full is not the goal. Being real is. You rise, your body is softer, your hands lighter, your breath no longer braced. The door slides open, the wind moves through. No need to resist it now. You step outside. The sun is warm but not heavy. A bird cries in the distance, and the sound doesn't demand a meaning. It simply is. You walk through the courtyard, each step like an exhale you forgot you were allowed to take. And when you reach the path, you pause, not to check where it leads, but to let something fall. One thought, one sorrow, one unspoken pressure you've carried too long. You place it down, like the cup setting itself into the tray. No noise, no ceremony, just a release. Because now you understand. What spills over is not lost. It is simply what no longer fits, and it is okay to let it go. Let it fall, let it soften, let it be seen. The tray was never meant to stay dry, and neither were you. You were always meant to pour, but also to rest. And today, you do, not by finishing the cup, but by letting what overflowed finally be enough. There is a lake beyond the far edge of the temple, not marked by signs, not mentioned in the chants, but the monks know of it. And sometimes, when the air is just right and the wind has forgotten how to move, you will find one of them walking that way, not for answers, but for drift. You go there now. The path is soft, barely a trail, only a rhythm in the grass where silence has walked before you. The trees thin, the light opens, and then the water, still, unshaken, holding sky like memory. You pause at the edge. There is no sound, not even birdsong, only presence. And in the middle of the lake, a boat, wooden, weathered, unmanned, no oar, no rope, no name carved into its side, just a vessel drifting gently with whatever the water decides. You watch it move, not in circles, not in struggle, just a slow turn, a patient glide, a quiet surrender. And something in you aches, because you've been paddling for so long, trying to steer your way through it all, through grief, through change, through the endless guessing of what's right and what's next. You've clung to the oars like they were the only way to survive, but the boat, it has no need for control. And yet, it moves, not stuck, not stranded, just carried. You sit on the bank, bare feet in the grass, and let that truth wash over you. You have been gripping life like a current to be conquered. But what if you could rest inside its motion? What if you could let it hold you? The monks speak rarely of surrender, not because it is not sacred, but because it is too sacred to be named too quickly. It is not about giving up. It is not about drifting aimlessly. It is about trust, the kind that only arrives after exhaustion, after resistance has softened into listening. You think of all the ways you've tried to force the direction in relationships, in healing, in the quiet war between who you were and who you were told to be. But life was never a straight line. It was always a lake, always a breath, always a movement that asked to be joined, not conquered. The wind picks up slightly. The boat shifts again, not in fear, in rhythm. It turns its bow to where the trees open and drifts into that space without effort. You close your eyes, and inside you see your own boat. Not the one you've tried to build with rules, not the one packed tight with plans, but the one beneath it all. Simple, honest, waiting. You don't have to paddle it anymore. You only need to get in. You open your eyes. The lake still holds everything. Sky, reflection, possibility. And you feel your grip loosen. Not because you're ready, but because readiness was never required, only willingness. You let your hands rest in your lap, and for once they are empty. No map, no task, no handle to cling to, just breath, just here, just the quiet knowing you are allowed to let go of the oars. The boat has nearly drifted out of sight now, not because it's far, but because the trees are no longer concerned with showing you everything at once. You remain at the edge, still, held. And in that stillness, a thought rises. Not loudly, not urgently, just a whisper. Maybe I was never supposed to steer so hard. Maybe direction was never yours to invent. Maybe life isn't asking for force, just presence. You rise. Step toward the dock. The wood is old, but welcoming. Each step feels like surrender, like breath, like trust returning to a heart that forgot how to receive. You sit on the edge, legs dangling, toes brushing the surface. The water doesn't pull, it supports. There is a difference. You think of all the times you've braced for collapse, the times surrender felt like falling into grief, into loneliness, into the unknown. But what if it's not a fall? What if it's a float? What if you've been held all along, but never stopped fighting long enough to notice? The wind moves again, gentle, certain. You feel it press into your back, not pushing, just reminding, and you realize you could let go now. Not because everything is fixed, not because all questions are answered, but because you no longer need them to be. You don't need the map to trust the water. You don't need a name for where you're going. You only need a yes, a soft one, a sacred one, the kind you whisper into your chest when no one else is listening. You imagine yourself in that boat. No paddle, no anchor, no plan, just breath and the willingness to be moved. And slowly you feel it, that the surrender you feared was never your undoing. It was your return to the place before striving, before fear, before needing to know. You are not lost, you are floating, and the current does not punish. It carries, it always has. Even in the hard seasons, even when your boat took on water, even when the storms came and left you doubting everything, it carried you here. And now you are ready to be carried without resistance. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you feel it. The letting go, the untensing, the soft drift of a soul that has stopped trying to earn its way. You are already enough to be held. No explanation needed. The lake does not require effort, only honesty. You open your hands, palms up, empty, and in that emptiness, something full arrives. Peace, not as concept, as current, moving through you like water that knows where it's going, even if you do not. You lie back on the dock, wood beneath you, sky above, and between them, you, a boat without a paddle, still moving, not lost, not late, not behind, just here, drifting in the only direction you were ever meant to go, deeper into trust. And at last, you let the water hold you. There's a small mirror in the back room of the temple, hung low, framed in wood, faded by years. No decorations, no offerings, no reason to notice it at all. And yet you find yourself standing before it, not to admire, not to correct, not even to recognize, just to look. And at first you do. You see the lines on your face, the tired beneath your eyes, the way your mouth folds into a quiet you never chose. You see everything you've learned to watch for, the roles, the history, the version of yourself you keep checking to see if it's still there. And it is. For now, you inhale. The breath fogs the glass, soft, immediate, a veil, arriving in silence. Your face disappears, just like that. No effort, no struggle, no sound, and something in you, a part that thought it knew who you were, softens, because the face is gone, And you are still here. You reach out, not to wipe the glass, but to feel the moment. This space where reflection is no longer required. You are not what you see. You are what remains when what you see vanishes. A breath, a presence, a being without outline. The fog lingers, and in that gentle blur, you feel it. This is not forgetting. This is remembering. Remembering what it felt like before the mirror mattered, before names became armor, before you became someone who needed to be seen a certain way to believe you existed. You let the fog stay. It is the most honest the mirror has ever been. You sit, not facing it now, but beside it, as if even your gaze knows it is time to let the image rest. You recall a moment a long time ago, when you first became aware of your reflection, a child, pausing in front of glass, tilting your head as if trying to locate yourself in the surface. And with that moment, something began. The story, the shaping, the editing of your own outline. But now, years later, that outline no longer fits. It's too tight, too defined. There are parts of you that cannot be seen in a mirror, and they are the most real of all. The kindness that rises before your face catches up. The breath that softens before words can be formed. The stillness inside that has no edges, no name, no image. The mirror has forgotten your face, and that forgetting is a blessing, because it allows you to become what you've always been beneath it. Not a person, not a persona, but a presence. Soft, unmapped. True, time does not pass in the usual way when the mirror no longer reflects. You sit beside it, but it no longer defines the moment. Without your image staring back, you begin to feel a freedom you didn't know was possible. There's no role to maintain, no expression to perfect, no performance left to hold, just breath, and the hush of being unrecognized. You close your eyes, and instead of fading, you become more present. You are still here, without name, without title, without face, and strangely, you are more yourself now than when the mirror was clear. The monk enters, but he does not look at you. He walks to the mirror, stands before it, breathes once deeply, and fogs it too. He does not wipe it clean. He simply places his hand on the glass, leaving no mark, only warmth. Then he bows, not to his reflection, to the absence of it, then leaves. And you understand, the bow is not for who we appear to be. It is for what remains when we no longer appear. You rise, slowly, as if leaving behind something you no longer need to carry. You face the mirror once more. It is clearing now, bit by bit. Breath returning to air, surface reappearing, but this time you don't look for your face. You look through it, through the image, through the familiar lines, through the need to be seen a certain way. And what you see is light, soft, resting behind your form. You are not the surface. You are what shines through it. You are not the outline. You are the silence that gives it shape. And the mirror, it holds that silence, just long enough for you to remember who you were before you had to be anyone. You bow, not to the reflection, to the breath, to the forgetting. You turn and walk away, not towards something, but away from the weight of always being someone. And with every step, you feel lighter, not because you've lost anything, but because you've let go of everything that isn't you. You step into the hallway. The light falls differently here. It no longer bounces off mirrors. It simply lands on the walls, on your robe, on the floor, and you let it land on you without thinking about how you appear. There is no audience now, only presence. You pause at the door to your room, touch the wood, breathe again. This time, no fog, only air. You enter, sit quietly, and smile not at anything, not for anyone, just because something in you has been released from the need to be seen in order to exist. You are already here, already full, already whole. Even when the mirror forgets you, especially then, you lie down. The blanket is light, the room is still, and the last thing you feel before sleep rises like fog to carry you is peace. Not pride, not clarity, not understanding, just peace. The kind that arrives when you stop recognizing yourself as a face and start knowing yourself as the silence that never disappears. And tonight, you don't need to be anyone. You just need to be, and that is enough. There was once a fire on the mountainside, not the kind that roared, not the kind that frightened, just a low, glowing coal bed beneath a circle of smooth stones. The monks kept it there through all seasons, even when snow fell, even when wind came, even when the world outside turned cold and forgetting. Still, the fire remained, not blazing, but alive. You find it one morning, wandering alone past the edge of the temple grounds, your thoughts too loud to sit still. And there it is, hidden beneath a drift of snow, yet somehow still warm. You kneel beside it, brush back the layer of white. There, nestled in a shallow bowl of ash coals, red, soft, breathing, not a flame, not a flare, just presence. And for the first time in many days, you feel seen, not by anyone, not by eyes, but by the heat. It reaches toward you without reaching at all. A quiet warmth with no demands. You hold your hands over it, not close, not desperate, just near enough to feel the life that hasn't gone out. And in that moment, you remember something your pain made you forget. Not all fire is destruction. Some fire stays to keep you alive. You think of all the times passion overwhelmed you, the love that burned too fast, the ambition that left you empty, the anger that rose like smoke with no chimney. And somewhere along the way, you learned to fear the heat. You mistook it for harm. You thought wanting, longing, burning meant danger. So you buried your fire, covered it in snow, called it healing, called it control, called it peace. But beneath it all you kept glowing, even when no one saw, even when you weren't ready to feel it again. The monk arrives. He doesn't speak, only kneels beside you. He cups his hand and clears more of the snow away, exposes the full circle of coals. Then, gently, he adds a twig, then another. Not too many, just enough. He leans in, and without force, breathes once. A single, soft breath, and the fire flickers, just for a moment, then settles again, still glowing, still gentle. He looks at you, smiles, not because the fire grew, but because it didn't vanish. He knows. There is a sacred power in what burns slowly. Not everything needs to rise in flames to be real. Some things just need space to stay warm. You sit together in silence, two figures beside a fire that doesn't consume, and you begin to wonder, what else in you have you buried, thinking it was dangerous when it was only deep? What warmth have you feared because others didn't understand its tenderness? You don't need answers. The coals have none, only rhythm, only glow, only the quiet invitation. Come closer, but do not fear me. The snow melts slightly around the stones, not quickly, just enough to remind you. Warmth changes things, but it does not always have to destroy what it touches. And suddenly you feel safe. Not because the fire is small, but because it knows how to stay. Not rage, not urgency, not explosion, just the slow, holy heat of something that's been waiting for you to stop being afraid. You reach for another twig, place it gently on the coals. No need to fan the flame, no need to make it bigger, just enough to say, I still want to feel. The coals accept your offering, not greedily, not with hunger. They shift slightly. Settle the twig into their rhythm. No flare, no drama, only glow. You exhale, and the breath doesn't fog, because the air around you is warm now. You feel it not just on your skin, but somewhere quieter. Behind the ribs, beneath the armor. There's warmth returning to a part of you that thought it had gone cold forever. It hasn't. You simply stopped sitting by the fire. And now you remember how. The monk says nothing, but he does not leave. He stays beside you, as if to prove something you forgot. You don't have to burn brightly to be worthy of company. You don't have to explain your fire to deserve stillness near it. You are not too much just because you are warm. The snow continues to fall farther down the mountain, but here, around the circle of stones, it does not land. Heat rises from a silence too sacred to name. You watch a single coal pulse red, then dim, then glow again. A breath, a heartbeat, a rhythm older than language. And you wonder how many parts of you have tried to go out just to keep others comfortable. How often have you smothered your own flame because someone called it dangerous when it was only divine? This fire, this low, gentle burn, it is not rage, it is not chaos, it is life, and it belongs to you. You remember a moment long ago when you lit a candle and someone told you to blow it out. Too risky, they said, too much heat. And without meaning to, you agreed. You started calling your own warmth a threat. But now, sitting beside this quiet coal bed, you see the difference. There is fire that consumes, and there is fire that consoles. There is passion that burns bridges, and there is passion that builds hearths. Not all longing is danger. Not all feeling needs to be controlled. Some of it just needs space to breathe. You press your hands together, not in fear, not in apology, in reverence, for the fire that never left you, even beneath the snow, even when unseen, even when forgotten. You rise slowly, not to leave the fire but to carry it, not in your hands, not on your back, but in your center. A quiet heat beneath your words, beneath your silence, beneath everything you are. You glance back once. The monk is still there, eyes closed, breathing with the coals. You understand now. That's what monks do. They sit beside the sacred until it forgets it was ever afraid. And you are allowed to do the same. You walk back toward the temple. The snow crunches under your feet, but it does not reach your core. You are warm, not just in body, in soul. The fire in you no longer needs to be big to be real. It only needs to be yours. You step inside your room. The door closes softly. You lie down. And for the first time in a long while, you do not brace against the dark, because you know the fire is still there, low, steady, breathing. You. Not broken, not too much, not dangerous, just warm. And tonight, that is enough. You don't need to be the blaze. You don't need to be seen. You don't need to explain why you're still glowing. You only need to rest. Let the fire keep watch. Let it soften the cold. Let it remind you, you were never too bright. You only needed a place where your heat was welcome, and now you have found it. Sleep comes like snowfall over coals, gentle, harmless, soft, and beneath it all, you stay lit. Not to burn, but to be. There's a stretch of sand beyond the old bell tower where no footprints last long. Even the monks avoid walking there after evening prayers, not out of fear, but out of respect for what disappears. And tonight, you find yourself standing there. The breeze is soft, but certain. It doesn't ask permission before it moves through you. Your robe lifts slightly. Your breath does too. Everything feels lighter, less held. You kneel. Fingers meet the cool sand. Without meaning to, you begin to write. A name. Yours. Each letter, slow, soft, careful, as if you need to see it again to believe you exist. But even as you write, something in you already knows this is not a carving, this is a release. The wind picks up, gently, no rush, no violence, and the name begins to fade. Letter by letter, grain by grain. You watch it go, not with panic, not with pride, just awe. How quickly the world forgets the shape you once called yourself. And somehow that forgetting feels kind. You sit back, palms on your knees, and you remember how long you've tried to keep that name intact, how often you've bent to others' stories of you. You've been the reliable one, the lost one, the strong one, the broken one. You've tried to hold all the names they placed at your feet, but no name ever really fit. Not for long, because names don't stretch wide enough to hold a soul. They only catch a moment, a mask, a version. And you are not a version. You are the whole, a breath, a wind, a sky that cannot be named without being reduced. The sand smooths now. Where your name was, nothing remains, not even an outline. And yet, you are still here, still breathing, still watching, still whole. The loss of the name has not undone you. It has revealed you. You close your eyes, and in that quiet, a monk's voice, soft and distant, whispers from memory. To lose your name is not to vanish. It is to become what cannot be erased. You did not understand that when he first said it, but now, with your name gone from the sand, you feel the truth bloom like a flower made of wind. You have not been lost. You have been freed, freed from explanation, freed from performance, freed from the weight of always having to be what others expect when they speak your name. You stand again. The wind moves through your sleeves, and you realize maybe the wind was never trying to take anything from you. Maybe it only wanted to carry what you no longer needed, like a name, like an image, like the ache of being misunderstood. You begin to walk. No footprints remain behind you. But that no longer matters. You are no longer here to leave a trail. You are here to be carried, not by reputation, not by story, but by breath itself. You walk until the sand becomes stone, then earth, then soft pine needles beneath your feet. The forest welcomes you, without asking who you are. No name is needed here. The trees never spoke it. The wind never asked it. The stars never used it to find you. And yet they have always known you, not by label, not by history, but by presence. You step deeper into the woods. A clearing opens. In the center, a single flat rock with ashes in a shallow circle. Another fire once burned here, not a destroying fire, but a remembering one. You sit beside it, fingers brushing ash. It doesn't stain, it just leaves a trace like all stories do. You wandered longer than you meant to. Down the slope past the cedar grove, past the last prayer bell, past where even the monks go only to listen. Your thoughts were full, not loud, but heavy. And still, your feet kept moving. Sometimes you walk not to get somewhere, but to feel something move. Eventually, you arrived at a clearing you hadn't seen before. A stretch of fog, woven low through the trees, and through it, a bridge, old, stone, covered in moss. No railings, no signs, no gate, just there, waiting. You didn't step forward, not right away. Something in the air told you this wasn't a place to rush. So you sat, on a fallen log, damp with age, quiet with patience. The bridge waited too. It didn't beckon, didn't speak, but it was not indifferent. It was simply there, a presence, steady, patient. You watched the fog drift across its stones. It didn't part, it didn't clear. It just moved the way fog does, slow, without purpose, yet always arriving. You realized something then. You weren't afraid of the bridge. You were afraid of what it meant. Crossing it would be an act of becoming or undoing, of stepping away from the version of yourself that clung to unfinished things. But the bridge didn't ask for your readiness. It only waited. And in its waiting, you felt something unfold inside you, a breath you hadn't let go of in years. You exhaled, not in surrender, not in decision, just in relief that nothing was being demanded, that the sacred could wait. You ran your fingers through the moss growing on the stone nearby. It was soft, alive. You thought, even time has touched this bridge gently. No pressure, no urgency, and yet the moss grows. You closed your eyes, and in the hush of fog and stone, a memory surfaced. The time you tried to heal on someone else's schedule. The time you were told to move on, to be strong, to let go faster, and how you did, or tried. But inside, a quiet part of you had stayed behind, on a bridge like this one, waiting for you to return on your own time. No one told you that healing doesn't bloom on command. No one said that the heart opens like fog lifts invisibly at its own rhythm. And now, here, with your knees drawn close and breath soft in your chest, you understand. There was never a deadline, only this bridge, always here, always waiting for you. The monk once whispered, "The path doesn't vanish when you stop walking. It simply becomes a place of rest." And this bridge, it is a resting place too. You don't need to cross it tonight, or ever. Its holiness is not in its destination. It is in its presence. Its patient, green, unshaken presence. The kind that teaches by being, not by asking. You open your eyes, and the fog drifts again. It curls over the bridge's middle, then parts just for a breath, just enough to reveal the path on the other side. But you don't need to see it clearly. It's enough to know it's there. You rest your hand on the first stone step, cool, still. It does not pulse with urgency. It does not command you forward. It simply says, without sound, "I will be here when you are ready." And something inside you softens, because you've spent too many years trying to arrive before you were whole. And now, for once, you're allowed to be unfinished, to be a becoming, to be someone who sits beside the bridge and says, "I'm not ready to cross," and still be loved by the silence anyway. Night falls gently here. You barely notice the shift. Only the fog darkens slightly. Only the silence deepens, and the bridge still waits. You sit beside it, knees drawn to chest, watching how the mist moves as if it too has no plan, and somehow that comforts you more than any answer ever did. You have chased too many answers, climbed too many hills looking for closure like a monk, searching for a flame in daylight. But the bridge doesn't hold answers. It holds space. It does not ask what you've come through. It doesn't test your readiness. It doesn't shrink away from your questions. It only says, in stone and moss and fog I remain. And what a rare blessing that is, to find something that doesn't move on before you do. You breathe in, not deeply, just enough. And in that breath you feel something inside loosen, a grip you didn't know you kept, a clenching around the idea that you had to get it right, all of it, healing, letting go, becoming, as if it had to happen on a schedule, with results, with proof. But the bridge offers no medals, no transformation on the other side, no applause. Only this, the holiness of being met exactly where you are. You lie back on the log, looking up at a sky you cannot quite see, but know is there. You remember how long you waited to be ready, and how many times you forced yourself to feel things you weren't ready to feel, forgiveness, closure, gratitude. But the truth is, some parts of you were never late. They were just waiting for silence. The bridge teaches you this. Healing is not a chase. It is a remembering of your pace, of your breath, of your right to stand still. The monk once said, "Even the fog is part of the path." And now you believe him, because even as you do nothing, you feel something return, not as noise, not as revelation, but as steadiness, like moss growing while no one's watching, like fog shifting without trying, like a soul that remembers itself without being told how. You sit up again, one hand resting on the edge of the bridge, not to cross, not to leave, just to touch, to say, "Thank you for waiting." And in that touch, you feel a kind of forgiveness, not from the bridge, from yourself, for rushing, for forcing, for thinking healing was something you had to earn. You stand slowly. The fog gathers around your feet like an old friend, and you realize you do not need to leave this place to carry it with you. You only need to remember how it felt to be met without urgency, to be witnessed without pressure, to be honored without having to cross. The bridge does not vanish as you walk away. It stays, as it always has, as it always will, not as a challenge, but as a quiet invitation that never expires. The trees whisper as you return through the forest. Not words, not teachings, just wind through branches, and that's enough. You know now nothing in you is behind. Nothing in you is broken for taking its time. You are not late to your healing. You are not failing because you are still becoming. The bridge waited, the fog stayed, the moss grew. And you are allowed to arrive slowly. You return to your room. The door clicks softly behind you. Your body lies down as if it has been walking for centuries, but your soul, it feels still, carried, met, no pressure, no path to prove, no crossing required, only breath, only rest, and a sacred knowing you will reach what you need when you are ready, and until then the bridge waits, always. There is a room in the far east wing of the monastery, tucked behind a wooden screen carved with lotus petals. No one opens it often. The hinges are soft with age. The floor remembers every footstep like a whisper. But tonight, the wind has come, not gently, not like a breeze, but full, with the sound of trees bending, of windows rattling in their wooden frames, of thunder peeling open the sky like a drum echoing through time. And still within that quiet room a candle stays lit, and a monk, wrapped in a thin cotton robe, sleeps beside it. His breath steady, his brow smooth. The storm slams against the world outside, but it cannot enter this stillness. Because stillness, real stillness, is not silence. It is not the absence of noise. It is the absence of reaction. And this monk, he has become the silence that no storm can move. You watch from the doorway, just for a moment, just long enough to wonder how someone sleeps when the sky is falling apart. But then you remember, you've been that sky, haven't you? You've felt the crack of your own voice against the ceiling of an unbearable night. You've watched the flood rise in your chest when no one noticed how close you were to breaking. You've been the storm, but never the monk. Not yet, not fully. Still, something in you aches to learn how. Not how to escape the storm, but how to sleep inside it. You step into the room, quietly, carefully. The candle doesn't flicker. Not once. It's as if the flame has made peace with the wind. And the monk, he does not stir. He is not pretending. He is not performing peace. He has become it. And suddenly, you remember something the elder once said on a quiet evening like this. The storm does not knock, it enters. But peace does not leave. You didn't understand it then. You thought peace was something you had to protect, to guard, to build walls around. But now, watching this sleeping figure bathed in candlelight while the world howls outside, you see the truth. Peace is not fragile. It is not a glass you carry carefully. It is the ground beneath the storm. And you have always had access to it, even when you forgot, even when your breath was shallow with fear, even when your own name tasted like failure in your mouth. You were not far from peace, only turned away. You sit now, on the floor beside the monk. The storm does not lessen, but your heartbeat does. The wind groans, the rain strikes the shutters, and still the monk breathes. Still, the candle holds, and you begin to feel it not outside, but within. A center, untouched, unshaken, like a bell that hears thunder but does not ring. You remember how many times you've tried to fix the weather, to stop the rain, to push the thunder back into the clouds, but storms do not listen, and neither does healing when it's demanded. You were never meant to fight the storm, only to remember that you are not it. You are the room, you are the breath, you are the stillness holding the flame. Not perfectly, not every time, but now, tonight, in this moment, you are learning. You lie back, just like the monk. Your hands rest at your sides. Your eyelids flutter, not in fear, but in softness. The candle casts a golden shape on the wall, wide, gentle, a light that does not compete with the dark. And you think, what if I stop fighting? What if I let the storm be? What if I trust that peace does not need my effort, only my stillness? The wind continues, but something in you has stopped answering it, and that is where peace begins. You don't remember falling asleep, only that you woke up softer. The candle still burns. The monk still rests. And outside, the storm is still very much alive. But it doesn't feel like a threat anymore. It feels like weather. That's all it ever was. The thunder was not an enemy. The wind was not an accusation. The noise was not proof that you were failing. It was just sound, just passing energy. You sit up slowly. The monk does not open his eyes, but it feels as if he has seen you, without needing to look. He shifts, wraps his robe tighter, and exhales. And in that single breath, you feel something let go in your chest. You remember how tightly you held the storm, as if naming it could protect you, as if fearing it could somehow control it. But storms never cared for your control. They came, they passed, and you were never broken by them. You were simply moved, shaken, opened, and now you are more spacious because of it. You rise to your feet. The wood creaks softly. Outside, the wind begins to fade, not all at once, but like a tired breath after a long cry. You approach the candle. Its flame dances slightly, as if acknowledging you. You don't blow it out. You let it stay, because this light was never just wax and fire. It was you, the part that never went out, even when you thought you had disappeared into grief. You kneel beside the monk, your voice still a quiet guest in this holy room, and silently you thank him, not just for sleeping, but for showing you that it was possible to trust, to release, to rest, even while the world rattles its windows. He stirs, opens his eyes. They do not search you, they do not explain, they only meet you. And you feel for the first time in a long time that you do not need to be fixed to be witnessed. You do not need to be calm to be close to peace. You only need to remember that the storm is not who you are. It never was. You are the breath that kept breathing. You are the candle that stayed lit. You are the monk sleeping through it all, waiting for your return. And now you have returned. Not as someone perfect, not as someone immune to pain, but as someone who knows that pain will come and go and come again. But peace is patient. It never leaves. It only waits for your stillness to remember its name. You step outside. The wind is soft now. The rain has slowed. The world is not quiet, but you are, and that is enough. You walk the stone path back to your room. The storm follows only in memory, but it no longer grips you. It is just weather. And you are the monastery, built for this, held by this. You lie down. The candlelight behind your eyes still flickers in its holy rhythm. The breath moves, the storm fades, and you become what you have always been, unshaken, unfolding, lit from within. The clouds arrived without sound, and the mountain, as always, did not explain. You sat beneath the temple awning, knees wrapped in your robe, watching the rain fall like soft forgetting. Not a storm, not a cleansing, but something else. A silence that arrived drop by drop, sliding down stone, turning dust into stories you no longer needed. There was a scroll in your lap, fragile with age, the edges curled like the fingers of an old monk at rest. You had carried it far through grief, through fire, through the wilderness of becoming someone again. The sutra was inked with truths. You believed that once. Each word a step, each phrase a foothold. But now, in the presence of the rain, it no longer needed to be read. The ink began to bleed, not violently, not with any sorrow, just slowly, as if it was always meant to return to water. The letters curled into whispers, the whispers curled into wind, and the sutra began to vanish. Not torn, not burned, but freed. You did not stop it, not this time. You had once feared losing the words, as if wisdom could leave you, as if understanding had to be held like a bowl, tight and full, forever full. But here, beneath the awning, with the smell of wet cedar and rain on stone, you remembered something deeper. What you truly know cannot be forgotten. There is a knowing beneath thought, a truth that doesn't wear words. Like the mountain always present, never needing to explain itself. Somewhere in you, a breath uncurled, and for the first time in many years, you let the scroll rest open and watched it fade. The rain did not hurry, neither did you. You had searched so long, hadn't you, for answers that shined, for teachings that felt like armor, for words that could hold you when no one else could. And maybe they did, for a time. But tonight, even the words bowed. You are not broken, only tired from reading yourself like a problem. You have not failed, only arrived. Arrived at the place where the scroll dissolves, and the silence beneath becomes your guide. Have you felt this before? The sense that the things you clung to were never yours? That some truths only visit once, then walk backward into the mist? What if they were never meant to stay? What if wisdom is a door that only opens when your hands are empty? The rain continues. The ink vanishes. And you begin to remember yourself. Not through memory, but through presence. Not through explanation, but through breath. You once believed the sutra was sacred because it held the words of the awakened, but now you see it was sacred because it vanished. Because nothing in this life is meant to be held forever, not the teachings, not the pain, not even the self you thought you were becoming. And in that, there is peace. Let it wash through you now. Let it whisper through the places you forgot to forgive. Let the words fade. Let the bowl empty. Let the monk in you rest. And now you breathe. The next morning, there was no scroll, only a pale outline on the wood and a few soft petals blown in by the night wind. You touched the space where it had rested, not to mourn it, just to know that nothing is gone when it has already lived inside you. The old master stepped through the mist, his robes whispering against the stones. He did not look at the mark. He did not speak of the rain. He only poured tea. One cup for you, one for the empty space beside you. And then he said, with a voice that sounded like leaves falling on water, "Truth was never inside the scroll. It was in how you carried it." You didn't answer. You didn't need to. Something in you had already bowed. Because you remembered how tightly you had once clutched it, reading the words as if they could protect you from the ache of being human. And now, you were just here, alive, with the rain still falling in your breath, and the silence inside your chest more spacious than before. Sometimes, the most sacred thing a teaching can do is leave. Have you felt this too? The quiet moment when something you once needed no longer fits. Not because you've outgrown it, but because it did its job. And its job was to carry you to this exact silence. There are teachings meant to stay, and there are those meant to vanish once you've remembered what cannot be taught. That is the kind of wisdom you carry now. Not in your hands, not in a scroll, but in the rhythm of your step, in the gentleness of how you set the tea down, in the way you breathe without gripping the moment. Tonight, you do not need new answers. You do not need old ones either. You are the space between the ink and the rain, between the sutra and the silence, between the seeking and the stillness, and in that space, you are whole. Let it be enough now to sit, to rest, to let the scroll dissolve and not chase after the letters. Let it be enough to know that the mountain still stands and you still breathe, and the cup still holds warmth and nothing is missing. Not even the words. The rain came again last night, not the kind that whispers, the kind that speaks with weight. You heard it from within the temple, thick drops like beads hitting the roof, like drums that do not call for dancing, but for stillness. By dawn, the path had become a river, and where the forest trail once wandered, only water now moved, and in that movement, a single stone. You saw it just beyond the garden steps, half submerged in the flood, the current slapping hard against its sides, pulling branches past it, churning leaves around it. But the stone did not move. Not a turn, not a shift, it simply stayed. While everything else was taken, you stood under the old cedar beams, breath fogging in the cold, watching it. The monks behind you swept water from the steps, whispered chants to ease the tension of the rising stream. But you could not look away from that rock, because something in you felt the same. How many storms have passed through your life? Not the ones in the sky, the ones in your heart. How many floods tried to carry you away, to uproot your center with grief or shame or loss? And yet some part of you stayed. Some stone inside you refused to move, even when the water begged you to forget your shape. Do you remember the worst of it? The nights when the wind felt louder than your thoughts. The mornings when your hands trembled, but you still tied your robe. Stillness is not the absence of weather. It is the refusal to be reshaped by it. The stone in the stream does not shout, does not fight the current. It simply is. And because it is, the water must learn to move around it. You have been this stone before. Not always, not every day, but enough. Enough to remember that strength does not always rise. Sometimes it stays. It holds its breath beneath the flood and says, "I will not be moved." You have carried that strength, haven't you? Not loudly, but quietly, when no one clapped for your endurance, when your stillness was mistaken for silence, when others called it weakness, to not react, to not respond, to not run. But the stone knows, and so do you, that there is power in staying. There is a sacred truth in not becoming what rushes past you. The storm does not define you. It only reveals what in you cannot be swept away. So breathe now. Let that knowing return. Let it settle into your bones like river moss clinging to something ancient. The world will rush. Let it. But you do not need to. You can be still, and stillness will be enough. The rain did not stop. It only softened. The water still ran fast, but now the sound had gentled, like breath after weeping, like silence remembering itself. The rock remained, half in the flood, half in the sky, and you, still watching. It reminded you of something the old abbot once said. You cannot teach a river to be still, but you can teach yourself not to follow it. At the time, you thought it meant detachment, letting go of desires, of thoughts. of pain. But now you see it more clearly. It meant this: not resisting emotion, but not chasing it either. Not fearing the waters, but not climbing into them every time they rise. To be the stone is not to reject the world, it is to welcome it without drowning in it. You knelt at the edge of the garden step, bare feet pressing against wet stone, your robe brushing the puddled wood, and you felt it. Not the water, not the storm, but the pull, that quiet invitation to fall into fear again. How easy it is to believe the current, to think, I must act now. I must panic. I must be swept away with everything else. But nothing in the stone believes that. It does not fear the river's urgency. It does not beg the rain to stop. It simply is. And tonight, so are you. You are not what moves, you are what remains. You are not the crashing sound, nor the foam at the edge. You are the weight beneath it all, the grounded breath, the unspoken calm, the still heart that never left. How many times have you been told that strength must be loud, that you must rise, fight, speak, push? But look again. Does the rock shout? Does it try to escape the stream? Number. And yet the stream cannot undo it. What if that's you? What if the most powerful thing about you was never how you moved, but how you didn't? What if your sacredness lives in the part of you that cannot be taken? That even when life rushed, even when your thoughts spun like leaves, even when your spirit shook like branches in wind, you stayed, you breathed, you endured. And maybe no one noticed. Maybe no one saw you hold yourself while everything else let go. But still, you were the rock. Let that sink in, not to praise yourself, not to cling, but to bow to the part of you that has always known how to remain. That is not ego, that is reverence. Because beneath your scars, beneath your exhaustion, beneath the names you've been called and the voices you swallowed, you are still whole. Not because nothing broke you, but because breaking you was never possible. You are like that stone, weathered, moss-covered, but unmoved at the root. And now, the river knows. It curves around you. It dances where you do not chase. It moves, but you remain. This is not detachment. It is belonging without control. It is love without panic. It is pain without collapse. It is the truth that you don't need to be louder than the storm to survive it. You only need to stop believing it owns you. Let that come to rest in your chest. Let it unfold like a scroll without words. You don't have to rise tonight. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to be more than what you already are. A sacred stillness in the center of movement. A deep breath that the storm cannot steal. A knowing that no river can rewrite. Even now, as the flood tries one last time to carry something, you feel it. It cannot reach the part of you that doesn't grip back. The part that just watches, like the moon, like the stone, like the monk who once told you that the strongest temple is built within. Do you feel it? That quiet presence in your spine, that subtle return of peace. That is you, untouched. And you don't need to explain this to anyone. You don't need to make sense of it. Just rest in it, like the stone. No effort, no defense, just gravity. The world will do what it does. It will rise and fall, speak and forget, judge and spin. Let it. You have earned stillness. You have earned peace. Not because you escaped the waters, but because you remembered how to stay. Tonight, you are not rushing anywhere. You are not being chased. You are not being reshaped. You are not being asked to decide anything. The flood has passed. The words have softened. The garden is quiet. And the stone remains. Just like you, so breathe now. Let everything else go. Let the storm in your memory settle. Let the voice in your head dissolve. Let the need to prove, to explain, to be anything other than here fall away. You are the unmoving center. The gentle no that honors your boundaries, the holy root that doesn't fear erosion. You are the pause between one wave and the next, the still note in the middle of the chant. And nothing, not time, not regret, not even fear can unmake that. So when the next river comes, as it always does, you will remember this, that you do not have to move with it, that you are not made of panic, that stillness is not weakness, but wisdom, and that the strongest part of you has always been the one that refused to follow the flood. Let that truth hold you now. Let it curl around your breath like incense in a temple. Let it anchor you to the earth that has always known your name. You are still here. You are still whole. You are still the stone. There was no gate, no roof, no bell to call you in, only the sound of your own breath and the scent of sandalwood rising into sky. You arrived expecting something else, a structure, a shrine, a doorway, but there was only space, open, infinite, alive. A single stick of incense burned, planted upright in a smooth stone, its smoke curling into the wind like a whisper that no one tried to hold. You paused, unsure if you had entered anything at all, but the elder monk nodded. "This is the temple," he said, and said nothing more. You looked for walls, boundaries, edges that could contain the sacred. There were none. Just wild grass, a stream nearby, and wind passing freely between sky and earth. Still, something quiet settled in you. Not because you were held in, but because nothing told you to leave. This temple did not trap you in reverence. It invited you to become it. And that, for the first time in many years, was enough. You sat beside the incense, not on a cushion, but on the earth itself, damp with morning, soft with moss. The smoke swirled near your shoulder, then rose and disappeared, as if it had never needed your eyes to exist. And you remembered how long you had searched for something to contain your devotion, a shape for the sacred, a name for peace. You thought it would be found in pillars, in stone, in ancient books with golden ink. But now, there was only this breeze and breath, a monk who did not explain, and an offering, with no one to receive it. And somehow, everything inside you fell quiet. Have you ever longed for a place like this? Not a sanctuary of silence, but a silence that needs no sanctuary. A sacredness so vast it does not require a door. The walls you built to keep meaning in, to keep failure out, they are gone here. And yet, you are not unprotected. You are free. Do you feel it now, that sacredness has no corners, that what you are was never meant to fit inside a shrine? You are not a visitor to the temple. You are the incense. You are the smoke, the breath, the open air. You are the sacred offering that needs no altar, and still you burn, gently, without needing to be seen, without needing to last. The monk left after sunrise. Quiet feet across wet grass, no parting word, no closing bell, just the sound of wind shifting through reeds and the last thread of incense still rising into air. You remained seated, not because you had to, but because something in you wasn't finished listening, not to him, but to the place, or perhaps to what the place did not do. It did not ask for posture. It did not correct your breath. It did not require your knees to ache before you were worthy of peace. It simply was, and you simply were. Two presences, unwalled, unhurried, meeting in a silence so complete that even thought forgot its name. You noticed how even the insects did not disturb the stillness. They hummed through it, as if the sacredness included them too, and the incense still burning, even in wind. Not because it resisted the breeze, but because it danced with it. Can you feel what it's saying to you? That offering is not about enclosure. That reverence has no direction. That the sacred doesn't begin at the threshold of a temple. It begins where breath does. It begins where you are not reaching for it. How many years have you tried to enter something holy? To step into a truth you were told lived elsewhere, behind a door, within a robe, inside someone wiser than you. But what if the door was never shut? What if the walls were only imagined? What if the temple was wherever you remembered to be fully alive? The incense did not light itself for a god. It did not need witness. It did not need belief. It simply gave itself to the wind, and in doing so, it taught you everything. That devotion is not a place you visit. It's a way you sit in your own skin. It's how you wait without needing the next moment to feel holier than this one. It's how you let the wind rearrange your hair and don't correct it. It's how you let the bird song enter you without capturing it. You are the temple, not in some metaphor, not in some spiritual riddle. You are it. You are the space where the sacred unfolds, not because you do anything, but because you stop trying to do something else. Even now, some part of you is remembering the quiet center that existed long before the names, long before the striving, long before you believed that holiness had to be earned. What if it never did? What if sacredness was always in the parts of you you ignored? The soft curve of your tired back, the ache behind your eyes, the breath you didn't think to honor because it came without asking. Can you see it now? That every inch of you is already a shrine, not a perfect one, but a real one. And the wind, it bows to nothing, but it still passes through you as if it recognizes your truth. There is a teaching in that. That divinity does not kneel, it visits. It moves. It rests where it is welcomed, not behind stone, but inside presence. The incense is nearly finished now, a tiny coal, glowing like a star that never tried to be seen, and it never claimed to be eternal. But for the time it burned, it gave everything, without request, without name, and that is enough. You've tried to become worthy of peace, but peace was never weighing your worth. It was simply waiting for you to stop looking outside yourself, for you to stop asking the wind to speak in the voice of Scripture, for you to stop mistaking doors for destinations. There is no doorway to what has always been here. The temple has no walls, because the sacred cannot be caged, and neither can you. You carry too many stories about where you're supposed to be by now, too many timelines etched like bricks into your chest, too many prayers spoken like apologies. But this space, it hears none of that, and still, it accepts you. What if this was the holiest truth? That nothing more is needed, that no chant, no ritual, no cleansing can offer what presence already does. That in the soft, unguarded moment when you simply sit, breathe, listen, you return. Not to a temple, but to yourself. And you don't need to rebuild the walls. You don't need to fix the roof. You don't need to prove the sacredness of anything, because the offering is made. The breath is burning, and the sky has already opened itself. You are not becoming. You are remembering. That stillness is not an escape, but a return. That holiness is not a garment, but a skin you never took off. And the world? It will keep trying to put you in a room, give you a title, ask you to explain your silence. Let it. You are not inside the temple. You are the temple. Wherever you go, the sacred follows, because it never left. It only waited for you to notice the incense burning in the open air. No altar, no blessing, just a breath so honest. The wind cannot pass without bowing. So rest now. Not within stone, but within sky. Not beneath a roof, but beneath a truth that never needed one. Let yourself be vast. Let yourself be undefended. Let yourself dissolve like smoke into the place where all boundaries vanish. And in that gentle nowhere, you are finally home. There was a lake in the valley, below the monastery. Still as a sleeping breath. So quiet you could hear the clouds drift. You often went there in the mornings, before the sun touched the high peaks, while the mist still clung like memory to the surface of the water. One morning, you saw it a single cloud, long and soft, floating across the glassy lake. It did not ripple the water. It did not speak. It did not ask for your gaze. It simply moved. No urgency, no attachment, no apology for leaving, just being, then not being. And something in you softened because you had been holding too tightly again to thoughts, to memories, to the story of who you were supposed to be by now. Like the stone you once dropped into the lake, your mind kept trying to sink, but the cloud reminded you of something older, that not all things come to stay, and not all things must be held. You watched as it crossed overhead, its reflection dancing on the water beneath, and for a brief, breathless moment, it felt as if the sky and the lake were the same thing, both wide, both open, both willing to receive without clinging. You thought about the monks who said, "The mind is like the sky, thoughts are just clouds." You had nodded when they said it, written it down even, but you never felt it until this morning. The cloud did not try to impress the sky. It did not ask the wind for meaning. It came, it passed, and the sky remained. Just like you, just like your breath, just like the awareness beneath all your thoughts. Can you feel that? That soft truth floating inside you, that you are not your thoughts, that the voice in your mind is not a verdict, that what visits does not have to define you. You have carried so much stories that were never yours, shame that had no root, worries that asked for your attention but never offered peace in return. And yet, you carried them as if they were sacred. But look again, none of them stayed. Not truly. Even the heaviest thought eventually fades. Even the stormiest emotion runs out of rain. Everything moves. Even the things that once told you they never would. The lake does not hold the cloud. It reflects it, then lets it go. You can do the same, not with force, not with discipline, but with the quiet, knowing that nothing belongs to you except your breath. And even that will one day leave without asking. So why cling? Why turn thoughts into prisons when they were only passing visitors? You don't need to answer. You only need to sit here, beside the water, and let the next cloud arrive. It may be light, it may be heavy, it may bring sorrow, it may carry sunlight. Let it come. But let it leave too. You are not the weather. You are the sky. You are not the cloud. You are the stillness that watches it float. Let that truth settle inside your chest, not like a stone, but like breath that doesn't ask to be kept. And when the next thought comes, whisper to it gently, "You may pass," because you are done mistaking the temporary for the eternal. And the lake still, wordless, endlessly reflecting, holds no shame for what appears on its surface. Neither should you. You are not a container of thoughts. You are the space they move through. You are the sky that forgets nothing, but clings to nothing. And that is enough. Let it be enough now. Let your mind open like the water at dawn. Let the next cloud pass, and the next, and do not reach. Only watch, only rest, only breathe. The cloud was gone, not with drama, not with sound, just quietly, as if it had never been. The lake beneath it remained undisturbed, and you still sitting on the moss-wrapped stone felt no loss, only space, not the empty kind, but the kind that feels like a gift unwrapped before you even knew it was for you. There was something sacred in that, a presence without possession, a letting go that didn't hurt. And you realized you've been waiting your whole life for something that felt like this. Not certainty, not answers, not permanence, but peace without grip, stillness without control. You had spent years naming your thoughts, trapping them in meanings, binding them with stories, calling them truth, calling them you. I am sad. I am lost. I am not enough. But the cloud taught you better. You are not sadness. You are not lostness. You are not the ache that lingers after someone leaves. You are the space that holds all of it without needing to call it anything. What if a thought didn't need to be named? What if it could come and go without your mind chasing it like a dog chasing its own tail? What if you stopped judging what arrived? The fear, the anger, the flash of jealousy, the guilt about feeling guilty. What if they were all just clouds? And what if you were the sky? No sky ever said, "I am angry." It simply rumbled and then cleared. No sky ever said, "I am broken." It simply waited until the light returned. So why should you? Why believe that every passing mood is a mirror of your worth? Why turn weather into identity? It doesn't stay. None of it does. Even the thoughts that hurt the most, the ones that visit you at midnight, uninvited, wearing the voices of people who never loved you properly, even those will leave if you let them pass. You do not need to silence your thoughts. Only soften your grip. You do not need to fix your mind. Only watch it like a mountain watches clouds. Still, unafraid, undefended. The monks sometimes say, meditation is not a war against thinking. It is the friendship of watching. That made sense now. The cloud had no enemy, and neither do you. Even your thoughts are not trying to hurt you. They're just weather, passing through a sky that was never meant to hold anything too long. You remembered the faces of people you once loved, the conversations that replayed, the regrets that looped, all of them clouds, some beautiful, some stormy, but all just clouds. They seemed so permanent once, as if they would never leave your chest, as if the weight of their absence would crush what little light was left inside you. But now, sitting here, with only wind and still water, you saw it clearly. Even the most painful memory softens when you stop naming it mine. Even grief loses its grip when you stop demanding that it stay. It has never been about making the clouds disappear. It has always been about letting them move without following. And you can do that now. You already are. Every breath you take without clinging to the one before is freedom. Every exhale that does not carry a judgment is release. You looked at the lake again. Another cloud approached, small, gray at the edges. Its reflection stretched across the surface like a soft ghost with nowhere to be. You didn't brace for it. You didn't push it away. You just watched. And in that watching, it passed. You did not flinch. You did not analyze. You simply were. And in being, you became vast again. Your mind didn't become silent, but it became gentle. Not a battlefield, not a courtroom, just sky, holding the moment, then letting it go. You wondered how much of your suffering came, not from the thought, but from the belief that it should not have come. How many days were lost trying to fix weather that was never meant to be fixed? How much energy spent trying to build shelter against clouds that never asked to stay? And beneath that, wondering, a breath. So soft, so unremarkable. And yet it held everything, because in that breath, you were here. Not solving, not fixing, not controlling, just here. And here was enough. The still lake, the moving sky, and you. Not chasing, not naming, just witnessing. No more storms, no more defenses, just the endless movement of things that were never yours. You are not the thinker. You are the listener. You are not the cloud. You are the space that watches it drift, disappear, and return again in another shape. And that space, your true nature, is not broken, not burdened, not small. It is vast and kind and open. So the next time a thought comes, a sharp one, a sad one, a flash of old memory, meet it like the sky meets the rain. Let it touch you, let it pass, but do not become it. Do not forget that even this is only weather, and the sky, your sky, remains. No matter what tries to stay, no matter how long the storm lingers, the sky never clings. The lake never holds, and you do not need to either. So when the clouds return as they always do, greet them without grasp. Let them float, let them shadow, let them mean nothing more than movement, because everything that comes will go, and everything that goes leaves behind a little more stillness. Let that stillness rise in you now, not as effort, not as achievement, but as what was always there beneath the clouds. A presence that watches, waits, and stays clear no matter what moves through it. You are that presence, and the clouds, they've always known when to leave. They never asked for forever. They only asked to be seen and released. And now, you know how. It was near the edge of the forest, just before the trail curved into the thicker trees. You almost missed it, but the light struck the ground in such a way that it revealed something quiet. A single footprint pressed deep into the soft mud. Human, bare, facing forward, and alone. No other prints before it, none after. Just one step into the unknown. The monk said no one had walked that path in many years, that it led nowhere, that it vanished into wild ground where even birds grew silent. But someone had stepped there, once, deliberately, leaving no sign of return. You stood over it for a long time, the air thick with that strange stillness that only lives in places not meant to be found. A wind passed, the footprint darkened with damp, then softened. Slowly it began to fade. You did not move. Not yet, not because of fear, but because something in you felt like it was being asked a question, not with words, but with presence. A kind of sacred hush that made you hesitate, not out of doubt, but out of respect. You wondered, what kind of person steps once into the unknown and never turns back? Were they lost or found? Running from something or toward it? You'll never know. And somehow, that was the teaching. Because not every path is a circle, not every step leads home, and not every journey was meant to return. That footprint, it didn't speak of destination. It spoke of decision, of the moment. Someone chose to go forward, even if forward meant vanishing. Can you feel the mystery in that? The weight of a single step that asks for everything and offers no guarantee. We spend so much time wanting to know how it ends. Will I succeed? Will they love me? Will I be okay? But some steps don't tell you anything except, this is what must be done now. And the rest. You learn by walking. You thought of your own path, all the places you turned back, all the times you circled familiar trails because they felt safer than silence. But this footprint didn't belong to safety. It belonged to surrender, to the kind of courage that doesn't wait for signs, to the kind of truth that only reveals itself after the path behind has disappeared. Could you take a step like that? Not toward a goal, not toward glory, just into the unknown because your heart whispered, it's time. No map, no promise, only mud and mystery and movement. You knelt beside the footprint, not to follow it, not yet, but to feel the echo of the one who left it. They were like you once, standing in the soft light, unsure if the step was real, but more afraid of staying still. And now, they are gone, not lost, just no longer where you are. And that is not something to mourn, it's something to listen to, because maybe that's what the path is, a single moment of trust that asks nothing of you but your full presence. You don't have to know where it leads, you only have to know that staying would be a lie. The wind shifted again, the footprint shimmered, and the mud began to settle. Soon it would vanish completely, and all that would remain was this: The quiet knowing that someone once stepped forward and never looked back. And maybe it's your turn now, not to follow, but to begin. In your own direction, in your own way, with no need to return to the version of you who doubted. Let that settle in your chest now, not like a push, but like a bell that only rings once and never again. And somewhere in that echo, you breathe. The footprint was almost gone now, softened by air, thinned by wind, made shapeless by time. You watched it disappear, and something in you felt strangely calm, not because you understood, but because you didn't have to. Some truths do not speak in language. They speak in symbols, in feelings that arrive without reason, in doors that open inward when you stop asking where they lead. The path behind you was known, worn, measured, safe. But the path before you, that quiet stretch of moss and shadow, with no more footprints to guide you, it was asking something else. Not for your certainty, not for your logic, just your willingness. To begin, there is a moment before every choice, when silence swells, when the breath slows, when even your heartbeat seems to pause and ask, are you ready to not know what happens next? You were standing in that moment now, and the longer you stood, the more you realized this was not a test, it was an invitation to become someone new by stepping into the part of your life that hasn't been written yet. You've lived so much trying to reverse things, to fix the past, to find the way back to who you were before the pain, before the loss, before the confusion. But the path does not turn back, and the footprint does not return. That is the mystery, and that is the grace. To move forward without a promise that you'll ever return to who you were before, because maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe the person you were was only the beginning, a doorway, not a destination. The path you are on is not about perfect steps, it's about honest ones. And honesty, real honesty, often means leaving behind the version of you that needed guarantees. Can you feel that? The quiet shedding that begins, not with effort, but with stillness. When the monks walk the forest trail, they leave no trace, not because they fear being found, but because they know that to walk fully in the present is to let go of the need to prove you were ever there. The earth remembers in its own way. So does your soul. You do not need to carve your name into the world to belong to it. You do not need to map every step to know that it mattered. Even now, as you stand at the edge of what is known, there is no one urging you forward. No voice commanding, no story pulling. Only stillness and one truth. If you don't move, you'll never know what only movement can reveal. Sometimes, the next step is not a plan. It's a release of hesitation, of needing to understand, of waiting for the perfect sign. The fading footprint didn't promise safety. It didn't even promise clarity. It simply whispered, I was brave enough to go. That's what stays with you now, the quiet echo of someone who trusted the ground without needing to see the end. You wonder, what if your life is not a return journey, but a dissolving one, where every true step melts the old self into the soil behind you, where nothing needs to come back because the only truth is what's unfolding now? It's strange, isn't it? How long we cling to things just because they were once ours. A dream, a title, a version of peace we promised ourselves we had to reach. But peace doesn't live at the end of understanding. It lives here in the moment you stop grasping and begin walking, even if that means walking alone, even if that means you can't describe what you're walking toward. Some paths are not found, they are made, one soft footfall at a time, one breath, one letting go, and that is enough. You are not asked to leap, only to step, not to prove, only to move, not to predict, only to walk with your eyes open and your heart just a little less closed. You may never find the one who left that footprint. You may never understand their path, but maybe you're not meant to. Maybe their purpose was not to teach you where to go, but how to begin without knowing. And that is the real teaching, that no one else can walk for you, that no one else can decide what you leave behind when you choose presence over memory. You've already returned to yourself 1,000 times in 1,000 ways, but this step might be the one you don't come back from, not because you're lost, but because you've finally decided to stop seeking who you were and start becoming who you are. So look down, see the mud, see your reflection in it. Not clear, not perfect, but real. That's enough. Lift your foot, place it gently beside the fading one, and let this be the moment that no longer needs to be explained. The moment you chose forward, without returning, without rewriting, without waiting for the storm to clear. You step not because you are certain, but because you are here. And this is where your life continues. The old story softens behind you. The ground shifts beneath you. The mystery opens ahead. And you move. Silently, sacredly, with no promise except your own breath. The footprint behind you begins to fade, and you do not turn around, not out of defiance, but because there is nothing left to return to. And for the first time, you're okay with that. There is only this moment, this step, this wind, this path that no longer needs to be known to be holy. And somewhere deep inside you, something eternal says, now, walk. The hall was always dim. Even in daylight, its tall windows filtered light like memory passing through fog. The monks rarely entered it. It was not a place of routine, not where chants echoed or incense burned. It was quieter than that, more still. At the far end, resting beneath a beam blackened with time, stood a single drum, unplayed, undisturbed, layered in dust thick enough to soften its outline. You found it by accident, searching for solitude, slipping away from the courtyard noise, wandering through doors you didn't know could open. And there it was, large, heavy, silent. A drum that had not been touched in years, maybe decades, maybe longer. No cracks, no ropes broken, no sign of abandonment, only waiting. You approached it like a sleeping thing. The floorboards creaked beneath your bare feet. The air smelled of cedar and ash, and your breath for a moment felt too loud. You didn't touch it, didn't even kneel close. Something in the silence asked for reverence, not explanation. This drum was not waiting to be useful. It was simply waiting, not anxiously, not forgotten, just patient, like it knew that the moment it was needed would arrive, and not a moment before. Have you ever known a silence like that? Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of readiness. The kind of stillness that doesn't pace, that doesn't check the time, that doesn't ask, when will it be my turn? This drum was not suffering its stillness. It was sacred because of it. You sat across from it for a long while, not thinking, not meditating, just letting yourself absorb what it meant to be at peace with not being used. How many times in your life have you rushed to ring the bell before it was needed? How often have you asked the world to call you before your echo was ready? You've been taught to seek, to knock, to pursue. But the drum? It teaches something else. That presence does not require proof. That meaning does not need momentum. That readiness can rest. Even now, you carry tension in your chest, a quiet ache that says, I must do more. I must hurry. I must be found. But the drum doesn't think that. It doesn't try to justify its waiting. It doesn't resent the dust. It doesn't mistake stillness for failure. It just stays. Whole. True. Ready. Can you? Can you allow yourself to not be chosen yet? To not be called forward yet? to not rush into becoming just because silence feels unfamiliar. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not broken because no one has struck your name like a gong and asked you to rise. You are the drum, and your time will come. Not when you force it, but when the world is ready to hear your sound. So let the dust settle, let the echoes sleep. There is nothing to fix in this moment, nothing to prove, nothing to fear. Only this, the sacredness of waiting without worry. The holiness of not knowing what comes next and still choosing to stay whole. You are not here to be used. You are here to be true, and in this hall of stillness, you finally hear it. Not a call, not a summons, but something deeper, a rest so complete that even time bows to it. Let that rest find you now, not because you are done, but because you do not need to begin until it is real. And when it is, when the hand comes, when the moment strikes, you will know. You will sound not out of striving, but out of truth. And until then, let the drum be your mirror. Let it teach you the gift of unhurried readiness. Let it remind you that peace does not wait for permission. It waits because it already belongs. And tonight, so do you. The days passed. You visited the hall again, not because anything had changed, but because you had. The drum remained exactly as you left it, dust undisturbed, light bending around its edges, silent, still. But now, you no longer stood before it wondering when it would be struck. You no longer asked, when will its voice be needed? You only sat and listened to the silence it made sacred. That's the power of something that doesn't hurry. It slows the space around it. It softens the world's edges. And slowly, so slowly, you began to realize this drum was never waiting to be used. It was waiting to teach what it means to be ready without expectation, to be available without desperation, to be at peace in the space between preparation and calling. You know this space. You've been here before, in the years that stretched without answers, in the mornings when you woke with no direction, in the hours when your gifts sat untouched, quiet in the corners of your soul, and you feared it meant you were being passed over, that you were unseen, unneeded. But now you sit across from the drum, and something inside you whispers. Maybe you were just resting, not rejected, just held, not broken, just becoming. How many hearts rush before they're ready? How many souls exhaust themselves trying to be found before they have truly arrived? But not you. Not anymore. Because the drum has shown you a deeper rhythm, one that doesn't panic in silence, one that doesn't measure its worth by how often it is struck. This rhythm says, you don't need to be loud to matter. You don't need to move to be moving. Look at the world. So much noise, so much chasing, so many hands knocking before the door was ever meant to open. But in this darkened hall, you remember another truth. That some things must wait, not because they are late, but because their time is sacred. There is nothing wrong with you for being in between. You are not less holy in your quiet seasons. You are not missing life because you are not sprinting through it. Even now, the drum remains, undisturbed, unashamed. Its power comes not from the sound it makes, but from the silence it keeps until it is true. Can you live like that? Can you trust that your voice will rise when it must not as an echo of fear, but as a harmony of presence? Can you sit within your waiting without labeling it wrong? This is the monk's way. Not force, not frantic, but faithful. Faithful not to outcomes, but to the unseen timing that blooms in silence when no one is watching. The dust on the drum, it is not neglect, it is blessing. Proof that something sacred has not been disturbed by noise or by need, and so it waits. You too are allowed to wait, to not know the next chapter, to not rush toward applause, to not build your life around the expectation of being summoned. You do not exist to be useful. You exist to be whole. And wholeness does not shout. It rests, it watches, it breathes. You may not know when the call will come, but that doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means the moment is still preparing itself to meet you. The one who strikes the drum, they will not arrive too soon. And you will not answer too early. It will happen when the silence has finished teaching you how to listen. Until then, trust this. Your readiness does not need a witness. Your preparation is not wasted just because no one has knocked. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not wasting your stillness. You are deepening it. So breathe, and let the world rush without you. Let the noise pass like weather. Let the wind forget your name for a little while. It will remember. But more importantly, so will you. You will remember that even in darkness, you were enough. That even untouched, you were full of music. That even in dust, you were sacred. And when your time comes, when the door opens, when the wind calls your name, you will not rise in haste. You will rise in harmony. Not because you were waiting to be chosen, but because you were choosing, moment by moment, to stay true to yourself. The drum will sound one day, it always does, but not to prove its worth, only to serve the silence that shaped it. And when you are called, you will not need to prepare, because you were never unprepared, only still, only listening, only learning how to wait without worry. And when the time comes, you will answer like the drum, whole, hollow, and ready, not because you were summoned, but because you already knew how to be. The teaching that never ran out of breath. It was hidden in the oldest part of the temple, where the beams sagged under time, and ivy crept through broken lattice windows. Not many went there, not even the monks. It wasn't closed, just forgotten by those who preferred things with order books, with covers, paths with stones, questions with answers. You found it while sweeping, tucked behind a shelf that tilted slightly to the left. Beneath a pile of empty bowls and cracked clay seals, there it was, a scroll, no title, no case, no mark of authorship, just parchment, yellowed at the edges, tied with a string so thin it broke at your touch. When you unrolled it, you expected something small, a verse, a chant, maybe an old name, but the scroll kept going, its edge unraveled with the breeze. And as you unrolled one fold, another revealed itself. Line after line, word after word, symbols so soft they seemed drawn with breath. You looked for the ending. There was none. You turned the parchment, followed its curling edge as it slipped down the shelf, across the floor, into the hall. It did not stop. The scroll stretched like thought, like time, like the moment before you fall asleep, where the dream begins but never finishes. You tried to hold it, to find the end. But the wind caught it, and it flowed past your hands like a teaching that didn't care to be complete. And in that moment, you understood. This was not a mistake. The scroll was written this way, on purpose, not to be finished, but to remind you that some wisdom is meant to keep unfolding. We want conclusions. We ache for closure. We hope that someday we will say, "Now I understand." But this scroll smiled without edges. It had no final line, no last word, no period, because truth, the kind that matters, doesn't end. It deepens, it circles, it dissolves and reappears. It visits and vanishes and visits again, just like you. Have you ever asked, when will I arrive? When will I be healed? When will I finally know who I am? And the answer, if it ever came, was only this: keep going. The scroll taught that, without speaking, without finishing. Its wisdom wasn't in its words, though they were soft and sacred. Its wisdom was in its breath, in the way it moved without ending, in the way it let the wind rewrite its shape without ever losing its meaning. You have been trying to complete yourself, trying to reach that final page where everything finally makes sense. But what if there isn't one? What if you were never meant to be finished? What if your sacredness is not in your arrival but in your unraveling? What if your becoming is the teaching? Look at your life. The chapters you thought were done have reopened. The pain you thought you buried has whispered again. The love you once closed your heart to has returned in another form. A face, a moment, a breath. Everything is circling. Everything is unfolding. Nothing is final. And still everything matters. That's the mystery of the scroll. It does not end. But it is sacred anyway. So too are you. You do not need to understand everything to be whole. You do not need to finish your healing to be worthy of peace. You only need to allow the story to go on, without rushing, without erasing what came before, without waiting for the perfect sentence. Let the wind unroll you now. Let it move your path in directions you didn't plan. Let your scroll be messy, curled, incomplete, alive. Because the truth is this: every breath you take writes another sacred line. Every choice you make unfolds more of who you are. And every time you forget, and then remember again, you are walking the path the scroll already knew you would. So stop searching for the ending. There isn't one. Only the next word, the next step, the next unraveling. And when the wind picks up again, and it will let it carry your scroll forward, not as something you must contain, but as something that contains you. Tonight, let that be enough. You don't need a conclusion to rest. You don't need a final chapter to be complete. You only need to know that your story continues. And that, in itself, is sacred. The first thing that ever loved you. It was cold that morning. The kind of cold that doesn't rush in, but arrives gently like a memory. Quiet, honest, soft around the edges. You stepped out from the temple walls just as the sun rose behind the far hills. And when you exhaled, you saw it, your breath, rising in the chill air like smoke from a sacred fire. And you paused, not from awe, not from fear, but because something about that breath felt like a homecoming. You watched it drift, then vanish. But the warmth of it, the shape it made before disappearing, reminded you, you are still here, alive, breathing. And maybe that's enough for today. How long has it been since you noticed your breath? Not the sharp ones, not the ones filled with tension, but the quiet ones, the soft, forgiving ones, the ones that asked for nothing but presence. You've spent so much of your life outside your body, running ahead of your lungs, bracing against your ribs, trying to live from the neck up. Thoughts louder than the wind, plans louder than hunger, regrets louder than rest. But this morning, the air was too still for noise, and the breath, your breath, was all that remained. Warm, visible, yours. You placed your hand on your chest, felt the rise, the fall. Like waves you forgot you belonged to, like a tide that never stopped reaching for shore, even when you were far away. You remembered suddenly how many times this breath has come for you without being asked, in sorrow, in shame, in collapse. Even when you rejected your own name, the breath remained, waiting. It never punished, never judged. It just kept arriving like the first thing that ever loved you. Because it was. Before words, before beliefs, before identity, there was breath, and it carried you before you knew how to carry yourself. So today you let it carry you again, not to achieve, not to succeed, just to return, back to the place inside your chest that doesn't speak in thoughts, but in warmth, back to the spine that has held your burdens without complaint, back to the belly you've spent years ignoring, shaming, tightening, back to the feet that still long to walk in rhythm with the earth. This breath doesn't ask you to be fixed. It only asks you to come home, to your skin, to your weight, to your quiet. It asks you to release the lie that peace must be earned. It asks you to let go of every version of you that held your breath just to be loved. You don't need to be worthy of this breath. You already are. You always were. Even in the moments you thought you were too much, even in the seasons you feared you were not enough, the breath returned. Over and over, it came back to gather the pieces you left scattered. You don't owe it an apology, just awareness, just your presence. Place your hand on your chest again. Feel that? That is your life. Right now, not yesterday, not the future. This gentle rising is the only moment that has ever truly belonged to you. You have chased so much. Ideas, certainty, affection, answers, but nothing ever stayed quite like this breath. And now you remember why. Because breath was never something you do. It is something you are. It is the thread that ties your soul to your body without needing to be seen. It is the bridge that lets you leave and still find your way back. It is the warmth in cold air that says, no matter how far you've gone, this is still your home. So breathe again, not deeply, not perfectly, just honestly, in, out, no effort, just return. Feel your shoulders drop, your tongue soften, your eyes grow heavy. This is not a task. It is a remembering. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not too far gone. You are still breathing. And that is a miracle. Every breath is a welcome back. Every exhale, a quiet forgiveness. You don't need permission to feel safe in your own body. You only need to stay. Here, now, with the warmth that leaves your lips and returns again, not to fix, but to remind, you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to belong to this skin, this silence, this breath. So let the wind carry your worry. Let the cold sharpen your presence. Let the morning hold you. You don't need to be anything else. You are not waiting for the breath to return. It never left. You simply forgot you were the one who left yourself. But now, you're back. And you're welcome here. No questions asked. No role to play. No outcome to chase. Just breath. And breath again. And a stillness that says, you are home. All feelings are welcome here. There was a small guest house behind the main hall, low-roofed, sun-warmed, facing a grove of wind-shaped trees. It had no door latch, no hinges that shut tightly, just a wide wooden frame hung with an old cotton curtain that moved when the breeze did. Inside, a few soft cushions, a clay pot for tea, and a floor swept so often you could feel the care in the silence. This was not a place of rules. It was not assigned or restricted. There was no sign to enter, no bell to be granted permission. You walked in one day because the curtain moved as you passed, and something about that quiet invitation felt like a breath you didn't know you were holding. You sat down, poured tea, looked around. Nothing called attention to itself. Nothing needed to. And for the first time in weeks, you did not feel watched. You felt welcomed. The elder monk once told a story, perhaps you'd heard it before, of the self being a guest house, where every emotion, every sensation, every unexpected visitor was to be welcomed as if it belonged. Joy, anger, loneliness, grief, all of them, invited in, given tea, listened to, not because they were pleasant, but because they had arrived, and because, like all things, they would leave when it was time. You thought it a nice idea back then, poetic, abstract. But here, in this open room, with steam rising from your cup, you understood what it meant to create a space that does not lock the door. You thought about the emotions you've turned away, the ones you've tried to shut out, the ones that knocked gently at first, then louder, then shattered your sleep just to be heard. You tried to fight them, tried to hide them in books, in busy days, in blank stares. But emotions are like wind. They enter through the smallest cracks. You can't keep them out without sealing yourself in. And that's what you'd done, hadn't you? Locked yourself up to feel safe. But safety without presence is not peace. It's prison. So today you sat and let the door stay open. And you waited, and they came. First, a shadow of sadness. Quiet, cold at the edges. It didn't speak, just sat across from you, lowered its head. You poured it tea. Next came worry, tapping its fingers, shifting in place, trying to count the future like beads in a broken mala. You poured it tea too. Then anger arrived louder, eyes sharp. It paced at the threshold. You didn't argue, didn't fix, just gestured toward a cushion and poured again. This is what the guest house is for. Not solving, not managing, not rearranging the furniture every time someone new walks in, but holding space, being the place where nothing is exiled. Have you ever offered tea to your fear? Not to feed it, but to soften it, to let it be seen without giving it control. That's the invitation now. You don't need to become the guests, only greet them, and know that they will leave when they are no longer afraid of being ignored. That's the strange thing about emotions. They knock louder when they feel shut out. But when they're welcomed, truly welcomed, they begin to soften, to exhale, to rest. Even sorrow, even rage, wants a place to rest. And your body, your breath, your presence can be that place. You are the guest house, not the guest. You are the stillness they arrive within. And you are the open doorway they pass through. Nothing that comes needs to be chased. Nothing that stays needs to be feared. And nothing that leaves takes anything essential from you. You remain. Soft floor, open air, a pot of tea that never empties. Even now, as you breathe, feel them coming, a flicker of doubt, a wave of warmth, the ache of memory, the lightness of release. Let them all in, let them sit, let them be known without needing to explain themselves. And if one stays longer than the rest, grief perhaps, or silence, do not rush it. Some guests do not know how to say goodbye until they have been loved without question. So love them gently, without fixing, without holding too tight, just enough to remind them they are safe now. And when the breeze stirs again, and it will, you will watch them go. Not because you forced them out, but because they finally felt they no longer needed to stay. And in their absence, you are not empty. You are clean, clear, spacious, and ready for whoever comes next. This is the life of the guest house. This is the practice of the open soul. To greet each moment with the humility of not knowing, and the courage to make tea anyway. Tonight, as you rest, feel your breath like an open door. Let whatever comes come. Let whatever lingers linger. Let whatever fades fade. You do not need to protect yourself from feeling. You only need to be the one who welcomes. And in that welcoming, even the hardest guests begin to transform. Because nothing softens a storm like a place to land. And now, you are that place. Always open, always sacred, always home. You were sleeping, not deeply, not restlessly, just somewhere in between. That soft grey place where thought lets go of its grip, but hasn't vanished entirely. And there, in that gentle in-between, a silence was watching. Not a void, not emptiness, but a presence, like someone sitting near you with no intention to wake you, only to stay close. The monk had taken a seat hours before, folded legs, hands resting like water, eyes half closed but not asleep. He had nothing to fix, nothing to protect you from. He was simply there, a living stillness, a quiet that chose to stay. The candle between you flickered, its light dancing across your shoulder. The breath in your body rose and fell like a tide, too sacred to disturb. He did not count your breaths. He did not judge your dreaming. He only kept company with your soul as it wandered through the dark. You did not see him, but something in you felt his presence. And because of that, you slept more softly. There is a kind of safety that needs no words, no explanations, just a quiet beingness that surrounds you without needing to hold. This is what the silence offered. Not a solution, not a ritual, just stillness that stayed. Even when you forgot your body, even when your thoughts dissolved, even when the world spun beneath your eyelids. Still, the silence remained, like a monk who knew that watching was its own form of love. Have you ever wondered who watches you when you let go? Not the people in your life, not the stories in your head, but the stillness, the part of existence that asks for nothing but continues anyway. You do not have to stay awake to be cared for. You do not have to remain conscious to be safe. You do not need to earn protection. It is already here, even now as you breathe, as your eyes grow heavy, as your thoughts begin to loosen and unravel like old thread. The silence watches, not to control, but to honor. There is something sacred about sleep, not because it is productive, but because it is surrender. To sleep is to trust the world enough to disappear from it for a while. To sleep is to believe that something else will carry your weight. And the truth is, something always has. You've never truly fallen without being caught. Even in your hardest nights, even in the deepest grief, there was breath, there was earth, there was stillness staying near until you could return. Maybe no one saw you, maybe no one sat at the foot of your bed, but silence did. It always does. Like a monk who makes no sound, but never once looks away. You are not alone when you rest. You are not unguarded just because your eyes are closed. The sacred doesn't stop because you stopped noticing it. It keeps watch, softly, patiently, lovingly, because stillness has nowhere else to be. And you are worthy of that kind of presence. Even when you forget, especially then. You do not need to stay alert to be protected. You do not need to hold yourself up every hour of the night. The breath will continue, the heart will beat, the earth will turn, and silence like the monk will remain seated just beside your sleep. Let that truth ease you now. Let it settle into the spaces still holding tension. Let it soothe the part of you that always thinks it must watch the door. You don't need to anymore. You are not the sentinel. You are not the keeper of the night. You are the one being kept. Let your jaw release. Let your chest rise gently. Let your limbs grow warm and heavy. And know someone is watching, not out of duty, but out of devotion. Not someone, perhaps, but something. The presence that never left. The breath between thoughts. The light behind your eyes. Call it silence. Call it spirit. Call it monk. It doesn't need a name. It only needs you to let go, so it can do what it's always done. Stay, watch, protect. And now, as your body begins to fade into rest, as the dream world pulls you through soft corridors where your name is no longer heavy, feel this: you are safe. Not because there is no danger, but because the silence is stronger. Not because life is certain, but because presence is unconditional. Sleep now. Let the monk in your heart sit quietly at your bedside. Let the candle burn. Let the night unfold without needing your eyes to witness it. The world will keep, your soul will be held. And in the stillness, you will be watched, not as a task, but as a prayer. This is the sacred truth. Even when you do nothing, you are still worthy of being kept. So, close your eyes. Let the silence breathe with you. And know, you are home, you are held, you are safe, you are seen, and the one watching has never once looked away. There are mountains in the north where the wind moves slowly as if it remembers something ancient, where light arrives not in haste, but in reverence. You saw one once, years ago, as a boy, or maybe in a dream, a single peak rising beyond the mist, half wrapped in fog, half illuminated by the first breath of morning. It did not call to you, but it remained, in the background, behind seasons, behind stories, behind all the things you thought were more important. It was there, even when you forgot it, even when you turned your face to lower paths, to shorter climbs, to crowded roads lined with noise and names. The mountain remained, waiting, not with impatience, not with demand, but like a presence too old for time. And now, after everything, you have returned to its base, not triumphant, not sure, but aware that something in you still hears the echo of that peak, even through the silence of delay. You thought you missed it, didn't you? That too many years had passed, that the gate had closed, that the summit had withdrawn its invitation because you waited too long. But listen, the mountain does not move. It does not measure your pace or punish your pause. It waits, because it is not asking for your perfection. It is only holding space for your return. Breathe that in. Let it loosen the knot in your chest where regret has made a home. You haven't failed. You haven't been left behind. You just needed time to remember what mattered. And the mountain, it understands. You do not need to race upward. This is not a climb to be conquered. This is not a test to pass. This is a reunion between you and the path that has always known your name. The fog still gathers near the base, soft, forgiving, not to obscure your way, but to remind you you don't need to see the whole journey to begin it. One step is enough. One breath, one moment of presence, one decision to no longer delay your own return. Have you been living in circles, wandering valleys of almost, carrying the weight of someday, until your shoulders forgot what it meant to rise? Let that fall now, not in shame, but in reverence. The mountain has not forgotten you. The trail has not vanished. It has only grown quieter while waiting for your feet to touch it again. This is the grace you didn't know you were allowed. To begin again without penalty. No one is keeping score. No path is closed. No summit is lost. The air here still carries your name. The stones still remember your steps. The wind still opens space for your ascent. All it asks is that you listen. To the quiet yes beneath your fear, to the breath that dares to rise, to the moment that whispers, you're not too late, because you're not. Time may pass, but calling does not expire. The mountain is not waiting for a better version of you. It is not waiting for the storm to stop. It is not asking you to feel ready. It is only waiting for your return. So come as you are, with sore feet, with trembling hands, with uncertainty wrapped like a shawl around your shoulders. Come, let the fog meet you gently. Let the trail emerge beneath each step you take. You do not need to see the summit. You do not need to understand the whole path. The mountain will reveal itself in pieces, in morning light on moss, in the sound of your own breath, in the stillness between footfalls. And the higher you rise, the more you'll remember. This journey was never about the view. It was always about returning to your own ascent, to walk not with force, but with belonging, to trust that even the slowest pace is still sacred if it moves you forward. And when doubt visits, because it will, when your legs ache and the fog thickens, remember, you have not missed your chance. You are not out of time. You are not too far gone. You are walking the only path that was ever truly yours. And the mountain, patient as breath, still waits. Not at the summit, but in every moment you choose not to give up. The journey is here, in the dirt, in the ache, in the rhythm of remembering why you started. So rise, not with speed, but with reverence. Step by sacred step, silence as your guide, stillness as your witness, and know you haven't missed anything. You are not behind. You are exactly where the mountain hoped you'd arrive. There was a day near the end of summer when the sky became everything. So wide you could not measure it, so blue you could not describe it. You were sitting beneath it on the old wooden bench behind the temple, the one no longer level, tilted slightly west with time. A breeze touched your cheek like a question with no answer, and that's when you saw it. A single white feather floating. It did not fall, it didn't rise. It hovered, turning slow circles in the air, carried not by force, but by presence. And behind it, endless sky. No boundary, no frame, no conclusion. You stared longer than you meant to, long enough to feel your thoughts loosen, long enough to realize you were no longer watching the feather, but being watched by the space that held it. That space, the sky itself, was not empty. It was everything. And in that moment, you understood something you didn't know, you'd been waiting to understand. The thing holding your life has no edges and no name. You had heard the teaching before, sunyata, emptiness. The monks spoke of it like a whisper beyond form, not a void, but a fullness so vast, nothing could define it. You nodded, wrote the word down, thought you understood. But here, with the feather drifting, and no thought left to cling to, you saw it. The sky is empty only because it holds everything. Have you been running from that space, filling it with ideas, goals, identities, afraid that if you stopped chasing, there would be nothing left? But what if the nothing was the most sacred part? Not a lack, not an absence, but the open field where all things come to rest. You have tried to hold yourself together through knowing, through answers, through shapes, through stories. But what holds you needs no name. It does not collapse when you forget who you are. It does not punish when you let go of belief. It simply waits and contains, like the sky, like the silence behind your thoughts. Even now, breathe. Feel the space between inhale and exhale, that quiet pause, that gentle still point. That's it. That is the doorway, not into more, but into nothing. Not nothing as despair, nothing as wholeness, nothing as the place where all weight dissolves, nothing as the background of everything you are. You have filled your days with becoming. But who were you before all of that? Before the names, before the pain, before the need to be certain? What was left? Stillness, awareness, sky. You were not made of thoughts, you were made of space. You were never broken. You were just covered in layers that told you to be something. But tonight, you are invited to be nothing, not as failure, as freedom. You don't have to be wise, you don't have to be good, you don't have to be healed. You only have to stop clinging to what you think will save you, because nothing will save you. And that's not a tragedy, that's the beginning of real peace. Because when there's nothing left to hold, you see, you were always being held. Not by hands, not by certainty, but by something so vast you cannot name it. And you don't need to. The feather floated lower, landed gently on your knee. You smiled, not because you understood, but because understanding was no longer needed. The monks say the Buddha once held up a flower, and only one disciple smiled. No sermon, no sutra, just a gesture toward what cannot be spoken. Maybe that's what the sky is. Maybe that's what the nothing is. A great unspoken truth that keeps whispering even when you stop listening. Tonight, you are held by that truth. Not as a student, not as a seeker, but as what you've always been, empty enough to carry everything. Let go now, not of your breath, but of your need to define it. Let the silence return. Let the sky rise behind your eyes. Let the space within you become soft again. The feather may never fall. That's not its purpose. It only teaches what it lives. That weightlessness comes from trusting what holds you without asking. Let that be enough. You don't have to arrive. You don't have to return. You are already within the thing that never leaves. And the sky, the silence, the nothing, it watches, it waits, and it welcomes everything, even you. The room is quiet now. Even the stories have gone still. The scrolls are rolled. The bowls are washed. The incense has burned down to a soft spiral of ash. And you are still here, not as someone trying to become, but simply as someone who stayed. You have walked far tonight, through clouds and cracked bowls, through gates that never closed, and mountains that waited. You have sat beside silence, listened to a drum that did not sound, watched your thoughts come and go, like birds leaving no trace in the sky. And now, you are not thinking anymore, not in the way you once did. There is less name in your chest, less need in your breath, less story behind your eyes. You have not disappeared. You have only softened into who you were before the effort. No one is asking anything more of you. No one is waiting for you to prove you are peaceful. Peace is already here, and it does not need to speak. Let your body feel the quiet, not silence as absence, but silence as presence. A monk kneeling behind your ribs, closing a gate made of breath. There is nothing left to understand. You are not late. You are not lost. You are not broken. Even your questions can sleep now. Let the past go, not because it was wrong, but because it has already bowed. Let the future dim, not because you must forget it, but because it has never needed your worry to unfold. And let the present hold you, like warm air in a candlelit room that no longer expects your attention. Outside, the wind is slowing. The trees lean inward, listening to your final breath of the day. The temple bell will not ring. There is no sound to mark this kind of ending. Only stillness, only sacredness, only the great folding of wings as effort rests. The candle beside you has burned low. Its flame dances, then steadies, then vanishes with a breath so gentle you did not notice it was yours. The light is gone, and somehow you are not afraid, because even in the dark, you are seen. Even in sleep, you are not alone. Even in forgetting, you are remembered by the silence itself. This night does not close with answers. It closes with a bow, with the soft closing of a wooden gate that was never locked, with the hush of robes folded over stone, with the whisper of something holy you forgot you carried. And now the silence bows to you. Not because you achieved, but because you surrendered. Not because you were ready, but because you allowed this moment to arrive. Sleep now. Let it carry what you no longer must. Let it return you to the deep place beneath your name. There is nothing more to hold, nothing more to fear. Only the truth that has waited this whole time to speak one last thing. You were never broken, only too awake to sleep.